In the summer of Imperial Year 894, a carriage travels along a cobblestone path. A massive crowd gathers to cheer and declare their love for the passing saintess. Fans weep with joy and hold up signs, ecstatic to finally see the saintess. As the pink-haired woman passes, the crowd begs for her attention and expresses adoration. Rowella Brietta reflects on how a small event unexpectedly transformed into a massive carriage parade. Watching the chaos, Rowella compares the spectacle to a theme park while a man chuckles. Rowella glares at the man across from her, certain he is laughing at her expense. Hildion Kairos, the crown prince, apologizes while struggling to contain his amusement at the situation. Confusion washes over Rowella as she asks about the strange paper Hildion is holding. Hildion explains a child gave him the simple drawing, which Rowella thinks resembles a bun. Studying the sketch's veil and blue eyes, Rowella realizes with a shock who it represents. Horrified, she wonders if the crude drawing is actually meant to be a portrait of her. Hildion confirms the popular drawing is a lucky charm based on the face of the saintess. Rowella thinks the drawing looks more like a harbinger of misfortune than a source of luck. Exhausted by the crowd, Rowella admits she simply wants to go home and go to sleep. A sudden, sharp realization strikes Rowella as she notices something unexpected in her field of vision. A system notification appears, warning Rowella to wave to the citizens or lose reputation. Rowella curses under her breath as the familiar hidden mission window demands her immediate participation. Resigning herself to the task, Rowella decides to complete the mission despite her growing fatigue. She waves to the ecstatic crowd, internally sighing about the obligation to keep everyone happy. The citizens praise the saintess's kindness after seeing her accept the child's humble drawing. Inspired by the gesture, more people begin throwing paper planes to center their drawings. Rowella observes the chaotic parade from her carriage, wishing for a peaceful life of simple leisure. A moment of reflection follows as she ponders how her life became so complicated. She begins to summarize the trajectory of her past life in a single, somber line. Before her reincarnation, she lived a life defined by the grueling fate of endless work. Left with her grandmother due to financial hardship, she inherited debts that forced her into labor. Following her father's passing, she had no time for grief, only for earning survival money. The woman lived in a constant state of exhaustion, struggling to keep her head above water. With barely any savings, she was forced to drop out of school to work multiple jobs. Looking at her meager bank balance, she wondered how much longer her difficult life would last. As an adult working at a convenience store, her only joy was reading a popular novel. During a lull at work, she decides to check the latest update of her favorite story. The web novel is titled Lilies Blooming in the Field, Don't Cry. The story was a famous hit, though it was notorious for having a disappointing ending. She eagerly anticipates the drama of the update, wondering what mess the author has created. The novel concludes abruptly with the statement that Hildion has met a lonely, tragic death. Stunned by the words on the screen, the woman stares in total disbelief at the ending. She tries to convince herself the author wouldn't kill off the male lead so thoughtlessly. An author's notice appears, thanking the readers for following the story until its conclusion. The author reveals Demos was the true lead, causing the woman to scream in frustration. She rants loudly about the nonsensical ending while walking outside, startling a passing dog walker. Amid her rage, her heart begins to pound painfully as she realizes something is seriously wrong. As her vision fades, she wonders if she is experiencing a genuine medical emergency. Darkness takes over until she eventually begins to regain her consciousness in a new place. A vision of a praying figure appears as the woman transitions into her new reality. She discovers she has been reincarnated as Rowella Brietta, a character from the novel. Her initial assumption about her new life as a holy figure begins to shatter. A white-haired woman appears, radiating a sense of purity and grace that rivals a saintess. Rowella is struck with the shocking revelation that she might actually be a fake. Summarizing the narration, Rowella is eventually driven completely mad by the overwhelming shock. Driven by intense jealousy, Rowella starts to relentlessly torment Sylvia, making her life miserable. Describing the narration, the pink-haired woman eventually commits an unforgivable act involving Emil. As Sylvia collapses, the narration reveals that Rowella had actually poisoned the saintess's food. In a chibi illustration, the white-haired girl is relieved to find she is alive. After being caught for the poisoning, Rowella is imprisoned for the attempted murder of the saintess. Behind bars, the pink-haired woman screams about being tricked into using poison instead of laxatives. The narrative notes that Rowella foolishly confused a deadly poison with simple stomach medicine. Summarizing the narration, no one believes her pleas because of her long history of temper. Summarizing the narrative, the woman sits alone in a dark prison cell facing her consequences. Summarizing the narration, she has no time to reflect on her past before everything changes. Summarizing the narration, Hildion's curse causes chaos, leading to Rowella meeting a futile death. A hand firmly pinches a pale cheek to check if the current situation is real. The pink-haired woman realizes it has been 1 week since she woke up as Rowella. Summarizing the narration, she initially struggled to accept transmigrating into an unpredictable and messy novel. Looking in a mirror, the woman admires her beauty and accepts her new life's reality. A close-up shows the pink-haired woman breaking into a wide, satisfied, and mischievous smile. The pink-haired woman thinks about how she is now a rich lady and should enjoy life. Reflecting on the plot, she realizes she is a fake and plans to live quietly. The woman plans to let the real Saintess take over so she can eventually exit peacefully. She smiles with pure joy while imagining a future filled with luxury and no responsibilities. A blue and white abstract light effect transitions the scene into a moment of internal realization. The pink-haired woman continues her train of thought, finishing her optimistic sentence with an enthusiastic grin. A blue system window confirms that Kim Hyun-ju has successfully possessed and synchronized with Rowella Brietta. The pink-haired woman screams in shock as a dark rectangular window suddenly manifests before her. Seeing the floating blue windows, she wonders why game elements are appearing in a novel world. A new mission appears, warning her to raise her reputation before the true Saintess is recognized. The pink-haired woman rejects the mission, insisting she only wants to relax and enjoy her life. A system notification warns her that failure to raise her reputation will lead to her death. She stands frozen in her room, staring at the glowing notification with confusion and disbelief. Staring blankly at the text, she expresses her utter confusion regarding the strange turn of events. A transition screen announces that right now, the current events of the story are unfolding. The blue window repeats the warning that she must rehabilitate herself to avoid a tragic end. The pink-haired woman wonders if the world is actually forcing her to go through a rehabilitation. She realizes the system window has knowledge of the original plot that she has not reached. Narration explains the current Saintess situation while she questions the true identity of the system window. Focusing on the dire threat, the pink-haired woman repeats the word death in absolute shock. The woman laments how her perfect plan for a luxurious and safe life is being ruined. In her mind, she envisions herself laughing and relaxing on a beautiful balcony overlooking the ocean. Frustrated, the woman holds her growling dog while screaming about the unfairness of the new mission. A red window details a new mission requiring her to use kind words or face profanity filtering. The window asks her to accept the terms of the new mission, offering 2 positive options. Feeling defeated and drained, the pink-haired woman stares ahead with a look of utter despair. She tries to convince herself it is a dream, questioning the existence of missions in the novel. A system window describes the final goal and missions for achieving the true ending of the story. Seeing the missing text in the prompt, she suspects there might be an error in the system. The pink-haired woman considers pretending she does not know about the mission to avoid the trouble. A new notice appears stating the window will not disappear until she makes a final choice. Resigning to her fate, she decides to pick an option since she has no other way out. Seeing a button with a heart, she chooses it, hoping for the best possible outcome. Rowella reels in shock as the system window makes an unexpected automatic choice. A new mission notification appears, warning Rowella that all profanity will now be filtered. Rowella reflects on the extreme difficulty of maintaining polite speech as a modern world inhabitant. Startled by a sudden sound, Rowella looks toward the door with an inquisitive expression. Someone shouts for Rowella from outside the room, interrupting her frantic internal monologue. Rowella's maid, Charlotte, is introduced as the one demanding entry to her lady's chambers. Rowella responds with a haughty grunt, attempting to hide her confusion from her maid. Side-eyeing the room, Rowella focuses on her next move while ignoring Charlotte's questioning gaze. Rowella considers that the current chaotic situation might actually provide her with a perfect opportunity. A red system window prompts Rowella to accept a calibration of her body's sensitivity settings. Rowella decides this prompt is the ideal chance to test the system window's actual functions. Rowella reaches out and points toward the floating window, confirming her selection for the system. While Rowella confirms the window is invisible to others, Charlotte remains perplexed by her behavior. The system notification warns that harsh words hurt others and demands a kinder approach. Rowella smiles mischievously at Charlotte, preparing to test the limits of the speech filtering system. Rowella's insult is automatically transformed into a loving declaration, leaving her completely horrified and speechless. Panicked, Rowella realizes the filtering works perfectly and fears she is truly in deep trouble. Charlotte questions Rowella's sanity after the outburst, while Rowella fears the system's deadly consequences. A dark premonition of death confirms that failure to complete the mission will be fatal. Rowella laments the dangerous nature of a function that turns her insults into affectionate words. Charlotte expresses her irritation, asking Rowella if she has finally lost her mind entirely. Rowella remains silent and wide-eyed, processing Charlotte's bold and disrespectful questioning of her mental state. Charlotte remarks that Rowella's behavior makes sense given she was recently scammed for a fortune. Charlotte boasts that she is currently the only person in the household aware of the scam. A tense silence follows as Charlotte smirks at Rowella, who is stunned by the revelation. Charlotte demands money in exchange for her silence, confirming Rowella's realization of her maid's betrayal. Rowella recalls with dread that she has already been scammed by a specific, deceitful man. The narrative introduces Organ Siebert, a silver-haired man who orchestrated the fraudulent investment scheme. Narration reveals that Demos, Rowella's crush, was the one who initially introduced her to Siebert. Organ Siebert promises Rowella a massive return on her investment if she digs deeper into the mine. Trusting Demos blindly, Rowella used the Duke's name to secure funds for the fraudulent investment. A heavy hand stamps the official document, finalizing the fraudulent deal and sealing Rowella's ruin. The investment scheme inevitably ends with Siebert betraying Rowella and fleeing with all the money. Rowella discovers much later that Siebert had been cast out of his family for gambling. Rowella is consumed by fear, knowing her father will have to pay for her foolish mistake. The narrative recalls the Duke's stern warning that he would provide no more financial assistance. Rowella's father threatens to cut off all financial support if she invests recklessly again. Rowella trembles as she worries about her father's reaction and what Demos will think of her. Narration identifies Demos Kellyan as the true male lead and Rowella's longtime unrequited crush. Demos is shown smiling brightly, hiding the manipulative nature that Rowella was once blind to. Demos showered Rowella with hollow gifts and sweet words to gain her absolute, unquestioning trust. Rowella's blush confirms her deep infatuation, which left her vulnerable to Demos's cruel, calculated schemes. After securing Rowella's affection, Demos's attitude turned cold and demanding, using her feelings against her. Demos mocks Rowella's hesitation, telling her she is incapable of doing anything without his guidance. Demos dismisses Rowella entirely, walking away as she kneels on the floor in total despair. Rowella blames herself for Demos's cruelty, believing her own perceived failings are the sole cause. Kneeling in a dark room, Rowella cries over her ruined life and her lost, unrequited love. The narrative prepares to reveal the hidden truth behind the scam that destroyed Rowella's finances. Demos and Organ Siebert share a knowing smile, hinting at a hidden connection between them. The final revelation confirms that Demos Kellyan was the mastermind behind Rowella's entire financial ruin. A recruitment banner seeks creative assistance for the series, calling for translators, proofreaders, and editors. Rowella suffers from intense guilt following the devastating financial fraud orchestrated by the deceitful Organ Siebert. Charlotte discovers the truth about the ruined investment and begins blackmailing Rowella using the Duke's name. The maid taunts Rowella, suggesting it would be disastrous if the Duke learned the truth. Charlotte demands pocket money to keep her mouth shut while threatening to visit the Duke immediately. Rowella observes the maid's arrogant demeanor, noting how triumphant she feels while exerting her leverage. Rowella reflects on Charlotte's greed, suspecting she is thrilled by the chance to extort a fortune. Rowella mentally rejects the threat, declaring that the maid's blackmail no longer holds any power over her. Having possessed this body, she realizes the old methods used to control Rowella are now completely ineffective. She dismisses the love Rowella once felt for Demos, regarding him with total indifference and disdain. Rejecting any loyalty to the Duke, she relies on her knowledge of the original plot to survive. A small illustration depicts Rowella kneeling alone, symbolizing her isolation within the rigid, predetermined story structure. She determines that her unique perspective is the only thing capable of breaking her free from fate. A sudden, sharp chime sounds as Rowella focuses her attention on the next critical turn of events. A system notification appears, presenting a tutorial mission to reform the wicked maid and make her repent. Rowella questions the unusual mission, but admits the rewards for reforming Charlotte are quite enticing and useful. Rowella eagerly accepts the challenge, having already planned how to deal with the arrogant and greedy maid. She considers embracing her role as a villainess to handle the situation with more aggression and authority. Rowella delivers a fierce verbal threat, terrifying the maid as she tests her assertive and charismatic approach. A new restriction appears, warning Rowella to use kind words because her current reputation is dangerously low. Rowella complains about the strict filtering, feeling the system's standards for polite speech are far too high. Thwarted by the verbal filter, Rowella briefly considers using physical force as a more direct and effective alternative. The system immediately shuts down her violent thoughts, demanding that she solve the conflict in an amicable way. Frustrated by the repetitive warnings, Rowella struggles to understand how to solve the problem without using any aggression. She realizes she must reform Charlotte nonviolently and decides to employ a specific character trait from the novel. The story reveals Charlotte's secret obsession with luxury goods and her deep longing for a noble lifestyle. Rowella plans to bribe the maid with jewelry to fuel her arrogance and satisfied sense of superiority. She predicts the bribe will lead Charlotte to neglect her duties, causing damaging rumors to spread quickly. Rowella contemplates whether the system will allow her manipulative plan to proceed despite the strict behavioral filters. Rowella calls out to the maid, intending to test the exact boundaries of the system's speech standards. Rowella insults the maid's intelligence, which causes Charlotte to react with a look of utter confusion and bewilderment. The system accepts the indirect insult, confirming that subtle verbal jabs are currently within the allowed range. A knowing and confident smile spreads across Rowella's face as she prepares to launch her elaborate plan. Charlotte is perplexed by Rowella's strange demeanor as the lady brings up the requested payment of money.
Charlotte's gaze sharpens with anticipation as she focuses on the promise of the fortune she demanded earlier.
Rowella prepares a jewelry box as bait, intending to lure the greedy maid into her carefully laid trap. Rowella offers the maid everything she desires in exchange for keeping the secret of the fraudulent investment. Overwhelmed by intense greed, Charlotte swallows hard and struggles to find words as she stares at the bribe. Rowella hands over the valuables, and Charlotte enthusiastically thanks her for the incredibly extravagant and glittering gift. Charlotte vows to keep the secret while Rowella privately notes the maid's insatiable and dangerous level of greed. A high-quality, shimmering ring sits at the center of the bribe, symbolizing the maid's complete moral corruption. Rowella presents a valuable ring, claiming it is more expensive than the entire jewelry box combined. The ring is actually a holy relic, which will serve as decisive evidence of Charlotte's extortion and theft. Charlotte is ecstatic over the beautiful jewelry, completely unaware that it is the key to her inevitable downfall. Rowella notices that the other maids in the hallway have witnessed Charlotte receiving the box of stolen goods. Charlotte is surprised when Rowella suggests she leave immediately before finishing her assigned cleaning and household chores. Rowella convinces the greedy maid to prioritize her new treasures over her work responsibilities and duty. Rowella dismisses Charlotte, offering to handle the cleaning herself so the maid can go hide her loot. Charlotte rushes away to enjoy her bribe as Rowella watches her departure with a look of deep satisfaction. The other maids watch in total confusion, suspicious of Charlotte's sudden and improper abandonment of her work. Someone off-screen calls out to Rowella, causing her to turn her head in surprise. Rowella mentions that Charlotte neglected her cleaning duties, appearing calculated despite her seemingly disheveled state. The other maids are stunned to hear about Charlotte's blatant and unprofessional disregard for her work. The maids quickly volunteer to handle the cleaning themselves to assist their lady in Charlotte's absence. They whisper about Charlotte's history of blackmailing, while Rowella notes how easily her plan is unfolding. Walking away, Rowella predicts that rumors of Charlotte's insincerity will spread rapidly throughout the entire mansion. A close-up shows Rowella's satisfied and mischievous smile as her scheme begins to take effect. The scene shifts to the mansion exterior as several days pass under the weight of rumors. A group of maids huddle together, confirming they have witnessed Charlotte's suspicious and improper behavior lately. They gossiped about the mess in Rowella's room, blaming Charlotte's total lack of dedication and duty. Rowella walks by looking neglected, prompting the passing maids to pity her for working entirely alone. Maids observe Rowella reading in the library, noting her sudden lack of energy and vibrant spirit. They discuss how people use books to escape trouble as a man approaches them quietly. The maids are startled when the silver-haired butler suddenly asks what rumors they are currently discussing. Panic ensues among the maids as they realize the butler has overheard their private gossip session. The silver-haired butler stands tall, surrounded by flowers, radiating a calm but firm sense of authority. He smiles pleasantly while asking the maids to share the specific rumors they were just mentioning. Sunlight filters through the leaves, marking a peaceful transition as the rumor mill continues to turn. Outside the mansion, a woman points out the unusual sight of the lady to some children. Maids whisper about Rowella's constant presence in the library over the course of the past few days. They note that she continues to visit alone, lacking any of her usual personal attendants or maids. Seeing her isolation, the maids express genuine pity and wonder how they can possibly help her. Rowella smirks secretly, delighted that the staff is gossiping exactly according to her carefully laid design. She hopes the news of her plight travels far enough to reach the Duke himself very soon. A chibi Rowella looks miserable and lonely, reinforcing the false image she has recently cultivated. In a contrasting chibi scene, Charlotte gleefully admires the jewels she extorted from the young lady. The narration confirms the plan's success as the mansion staff whispers behind Charlotte's back. Maids quietly discuss Charlotte being summoned by the Duke while Rowella listens from the background. Rowella observes the commotion with a calm, watchful gaze, knowing her trap has finally been triggered. A thought bubble questions the nature of the conversation happening among the gossiping mansion staff members. They reveal that the head butler reported the rumors, which have now officially reached the Duke. Rowella continues reading, a small smile appearing as she learns Charlotte has been summoned to answer. Duke Brietta sits at his desk, contemplating the strange rumors that have infected his noble household. The butler reports the blackmail suspicions, but the Duke finds the idea of Rowella being bullied unbelievable. The butler explains the servant's suspicions, while the Duke remains skeptical of his daughter's supposed victimization. A vision of Ruella's aggressive past self appears as they discuss her typical and threatening behavior. The butler emphasizes that there are additional unusual changes in the young lady's recent conduct. He notes her frequent library visits, suggesting they might be another ploy to get his attention. Maids observe Ruella's quiet behavior and decreased spending, noting how drastically she has suddenly changed. The Duke realizes things have been unusually peaceful lately, with no reports of his daughter's ruthless behavior. The narrator admits that the sudden change in Ruella's character was initially very hard to believe. The butler insists the sheer number of witnesses makes the rumors impossible for them to ignore. He suggests a formal investigation, prompting the Duke to fall into a long moment of silence. Duke Brietta sighs deeply, clearly frustrated by the mounting evidence and his daughter's strange behavior. He decides to proceed, acknowledging that the situation requires his direct and immediate intervention. The Duke sternly orders the personal maid involved in the rumors to be brought before him. Charlotte stands before the Duke, trembling as she asks why she was so suddenly called. She's overwhelmed by fear, aware of how rarely the Duke summons low-ranking servants personally. The narrative emphasizes the gravity of the situation as the Duke prepares for the interrogation. Duke Brietta stands with an imposing presence, ready to uncover the truth behind the blackmail rumors. Duke Brietta asks Charlotte to confirm the rumors spreading through the ducal household regarding her recent conduct. The Duke stares intensely as he mentions the specific rumor of her blackmailing and extorting Ruella. Charlotte looks startled and wide-eyed as she is formally confronted with the accusation of extortion. Charlotte frantically denies the accusation, claiming it is a false rumor while the Duke and butler watch. Internally, Charlotte panics and desperately wonders how the Duke managed to discover her secret blackmail scheme. Charlotte recalls Ruella begging her to keep the secret while offering a precious necklace as a bribe. Charlotte grit her teeth, suspecting that someone else must have seen her taking the jewels from Ruella. She decides to deny everything, believing Ruella would never reveal her own fault to the Duke anyway. Charlotte decides to act shamelessly, claiming the rumor is false and that someone can prove her innocence. She demands that they call for the young lady to confirm her innocence to the Duke immediately. The butler whispers to the Duke about having already ordered a search of the maid's private room. Duke Brietta exhales a heavy, weary breath while contemplating the next steps of his daughter's strange investigation. A loud shouting voice interrupts the tense silence, demanding that everyone in the room wait a moment. Ruella bursts into the room, declaring that she also has something very important to say right now. Ruella gasps for breath with a look of extreme urgency following her sudden and dramatic entrance. The Duke, Butler, and Charlotte are all visibly shocked by Ruella's sudden and very loud appearance. Ruella smirks secretly, feeling a sense of relief that her plan to seize the spotlight is working. Ruella's internal monologue declares that the highlight of this entire event belongs entirely to her right now. Ruella drops to the floor, apologizing profusely to her father while claiming that everything is her fault. The witnesses are horrified by the loud sound of Ruella's knees hitting the floor with such force. Ruella prepares to confess the blackmail and scam to steer the entire situation in her own favor. Sobbing, Ruella admits to being severely scammed and that Charlotte used that information as leverage against her. Duke Brietta asks if the rumors are true, while Ruella tearfully describes how she was being extorted. Charlotte panics, asking Ruella why she is lying when the jewels were supposedly given as personal gifts. A guard enters the room, reporting that they have finished searching the maid's quarters as ordered earlier. He presents a jewelry box containing valuables and the ring given by the high priest as evidence. Charlotte is horrified, screaming that she never even touched the high priest's ring found in her room. Charlotte stares at the ring in shock, realizing its presence as planted evidence means her inevitable downfall. Ruella continues her performance as Charlotte looks at her with an expression of total despair and horror. Ruella cries about failing as a noble lady and a saintess to seal the trap for the maid. Duke Brietta tells Ruella they will discuss her faults later while Charlotte trembles in the background. The Duke stares coldly as he declares that first they must drive out the mansion's treacherous rat. Duke Brietta orders the immediate removal of the maid who has snuck into his noble ducal household. A system notification notes that for the sake of the mission, the maid will have to go. The text continues the thought, stating that the maid's removal is necessary for the current mission's success. Guards grab Charlotte to throw her out as she desperately begs for a moment to explain herself. Charlotte desperately begs for forgiveness as the guards begin dragging her away from the Duke and Ruella. Ruella watches with a cold smile, telling Charlotte to live a decent life and never meet again. The heavy office doors slam shut, signaling the finality of Charlotte's swift and permanent expulsion from the mansion. Ruella looks up at her father, noting that the only problem left to solve is his reaction. Duke Brietta stands tall and imposing, ready to address the details of the fraudulent financial investment scam. The Duke asks Ruella to explain the exact details of the scam that she recently fell for. Duke Brietta questions if Count Siebert's second son was not already removed from the official family registry. Ruella admits she was reckless and did not find out about the man's status in enough time. The Duke is dumbfounded by the massive 3-month allowance sum mentioned in Rowella's sudden and honest confession.
Rowella reflects on being a victim despite using the Duke's name recklessly to guarantee the investment amount.
Rowella determines that since she is Rowella now, she has no choice but to handle the consequences.
Rowella offers a sincere apology to her father, who remains in a state of shock and disbelief.
Duke Brietta rubs his forehead in frustration, overwhelmed by his daughter's sudden and uncharacteristic humble apology.
Rowella notes that the Duke's voice is surprisingly soft when he asks about the guaranteed payment amount.
Rowella explains that she sold her luxury items to cover most of the debt, and the Duke understands. The Duke offers to pay the remaining balance, prompting a loud and shocked exclamation from his daughter. The Duke asks if something is wrong, and a nervous Rowella quickly insists that everything is fine. The Duke suspends her allowance for 3 months as a warning, while Rowella notes the punishment is light. Rowella compares the current 3-month suspension to the original story's harsher 6-month penalty and wonders why he relented. Rowella is puzzled by the Duke's change of heart, but decides to move forward with a smirk. Rowella bows deeply to accept the decision, causing the butler to worry about her hitting her head. The Duke tells her she is dismissed, and Rowella obediently agrees to leave the room. Rowella promises to reflect on her past actions as she prepares to exit the Duke's office. Rowella thanks her father for constantly resolving her messes, surprising him with her newfound humility and sincerity.
The Duke watches silently as Rowella addresses him affectionately as father before she departs.
A close-up captures the Duke's shocked expression following his daughter's uncharacteristically warm and respectful farewell. The Duke tells her to go rest, and Rowella thanks him one last time as she leaves. The Duke calls for Graham, and the butler immediately steps forward to attend to his master's needs. The Duke asks for an opinion on the child, and Graham agrees that she has truly changed. The Duke acknowledges that Graham sees the change as well, looking slightly pleased by his daughter's behavior. Graham notices the Duke looks proud, causing the master of the house to clear his throat awkwardly. The Duke reflects on how many times he had previously hoped for Rowella to change her ways. He remembers raising his precious daughter with all his heart to fill the void left by her mother.
He recalls how they grew distant as she became arrogant, forcing him to become stricter to guide her.
Seeing her tears today has left her on his mind far more than he ever expected before. Noticing she looked thinner, the Duke clenches his cane and addresses the news of the financial scam. The Duke orders a wanted notice for the swindler, confirming the target is Count Siebert's second son. He fumes over the criminal brat's audacity in scamming the lady of the prestigious Brietta family. The Duke's cane slams against the floor with a powerful strike, echoing his intense and focused rage. He commands that a bounty be placed to catch the swindler quickly and restore the family's honor. Graham bows respectfully, promising to carry out the Duke's orders to hunt down the man who scammed Rowella. Night falls over the mansion, leaving the quiet library illuminated by a faint and magical blue glow. A system window confirms the tutorial mission success and Charlotte's reformation, much to Rowella's relief and delight. Rowella finds the reward satisfactory and attempts to check her current reputation level within the system's interface. The status window appears instantly, showing her current stats and causing Rowella to gasp in utter surprise. The screen displays Rowella's reputation as 9, leaving her confused about how the number became so high. Rowella recalls her reputation was originally 3 and notes the mission requirement to reach 70 for survival. She calculates that with the 3 points from the reward, her reputation should only be at 6. A confused Rowella wonders where the additional 3 points of reputation could have possibly come from so suddenly. Rowella considers the possibility that the Duke's positive reaction to her apology earned her the extra reputation points. She decides not to worry because a higher reputation is better, even if their relationship was historically terrible. Rowella tries to access the special stats and coins, but the system declares the function is currently unavailable. She suspects the lockout is due to her low reputation and realizes the entire system prioritizes that stat. Rowella focuses on building reputation as her main priority, while complaining about the system's many unhelpful restrictions. She feels the system is constantly pushing her to act morally by forbidding swearing and rewarding good deeds. Rowella wonders if these moral requirements are related to the final goal the system mentioned during the transmission. Frustrated by the lack of information, Rowella collapses onto her bed with an exhausted and dramatic groan. She determines that gathering information is the top priority for her survival and the success of future missions. Rowella yawns as the tension fades, deciding that she should finally get some much-needed sleep for the night. In the morning, new maids Mary and Jane announce their assignment and ask for permission to enter. The maids offer their assistance to help Rowella get ready for the day as they enter the room.
The maids are shocked by Rowella's haggard appearance, and she admits that she simply did not sleep well.
The maids pity Rowella for Charlotte's behavior and promise to serve her well as she thanks them. Rowella notes her sleeplessness was actually caused by the appearance of a hidden mission regarding temple donations. A system notification appears, presenting a hidden mission to collect donations for the temple. While her maids dress her, Rowella wonders if she accidentally accepted the mission while sleeping. Rowella calculates that the mission terms are favorable, offering a full refund plus 10% profit. Looking at the interface, Rowella is surprised to learn that mission coins can be liquidated. Rowella feels that even if she were awake, she would have accepted the profitable mission. Suddenly, Rowella panics as she remembers her allowance is currently suspended for the next 3 months. The system confirms there is no specific deadline for completing the hidden donation mission. Rowella realizes the mission could end at any time, making its frequent completion very beneficial. She notes that raising her reputation quickly is the key to unlocking the story's final rewards. Rowella wears a blissful, drooling expression as she imagines the wealth she will soon acquire. A knock interrupts Rowella's thoughts as a maid announces that a guest has suddenly arrived. Rowella permits the guest to enter, intending to investigate anyone connected to the original character's life. A woman in a red lace dress enters, commenting that Rowella looks dreadful despite her illness. The red-haired woman remarks that Rowella's minor ailments would vanish if she possessed more holy power. The guest is revealed to be Helena, who smiles while addressing Rowella as her sister. Narration identifies Helena Dieter as a relative and rival who frequently provoked the original Rowella. Rowella recalls that Helena constantly stirred up trouble despite her outward appearance of sweet concern. Helena's ultimate goal was always to win the favor of Rowella's father, the Duke of Brietta. A flashback shows Helena acting victimized, asking why Rowella is being so scary and aggressive. While Helena cries and claims Rowella is mean, Rowella insists that Helena insulted her first. Rowella is left speechless as the surrounding mansion staff begins whispering about her supposed cruel behavior. In the memory, Helena clicks her tongue while Rowella looks over with a startled expression. Duke Brietta demands Rowella stop causing disturbances and orders her to apologize to Helena immediately. Helena smirks secretly while the narration explains how she always makes Rowella look like the perpetrator. The memory ends with a humiliated Rowella bowing her head to offer Helena a sincere apology. The unfair treatment caused by Helena's manipulation made the original Rowella loathe her cousin entirely. In the present, Rowella notes that Helena bullies her without even having a valid reason. Helena brags that the Duke bought her dress, subtly mocking Rowella by asking about his kindness. Rowella realizes Helena is trying to provoke her because of her notoriously poor relationship with the Duke. Helena laughs, assuming Rowella has fallen out of favor, while Rowella internally finds the behavior childish. Rowella calmly responds that family relationships shouldn't require a difficult or conscious performance of kindness. Stunned, Helena asks if Rowella thinks the Duke's kindness is an act, but Rowella quickly demurs. Helena's private thoughts reveal she actually bought the dress herself using money the Duke sent. Helena insists the Duke treasures her like a daughter as Rowella tells the maids to bring two. Rowella politely asks Helena to leave her room so she can enjoy her tea time in peace. Smiling brightly, Rowella emphasizes her desire to rest in her own home and her own room. Helena glares at her cousin, confused by Rowella's unusual composure and lack of an angry reaction. Helena smirks as she remembers a specific piece of news that will surely make Rowella crumble. Helena mentions Demos Kellyan and the rumors that the Duke issued a wanted poster for a swindler. Rowella is shocked by the news as Helena giggles, delighting in her cousin's dazed and surprised expression. Rowella wonders if her father went that far as Helena mocks her attempts to appear composed. Helena leans in, thinking that despite any perceived improvement, the Duke is still firmly on her side. Helena smiles maliciously, asking if Rowella has heard about young Duke Kellyan finding out the truth. Rowella sits in silence, calmly holding her teacup as she processes the news Helena delivered. Rowella asks what Kellyan's discovery has to do with her, leaving Helena shocked by her calm. A close-up shows Rowella's hand as she slowly sets her teacup down onto the table. Helena asks for clarification, and Rowella explains the wanted poster was likely to protect the family's honor. Resting her chin on her hand, Rowella smirks while commenting on Helena's habit of spreading rumors. Helena's confident expression vanishes, replaced by a look of utter confusion and growing irritation. Helena's inner monologue expresses disbelief that the Duke would act for Rowella, but she feels uncertain. Helena worries that her current behavior might cause her to fall out of favor with the Duke. Helena forces a smile and tries to maintain her composure during the tense interaction with Rowella. Helena laughs off the tension, claiming she only visited out of worry, while Rowella mockingly praises her kindness. Helena pokes Rowella with a snack, warning her not to be foolish enough to spread rumors elsewhere. Rowella forces a laugh and promises to keep quiet while she eats the snack provided by Helena. With a polite smile, Rowella dismisses Helena and tells her she is free to leave the room. In private, a seething Helena slams her fan down, enraged that Rowella stayed calm instead of getting angry. Helena recalls Rowella's cheerful dismissal and finds her cousin's newfound composure to be incredibly irritating.
Helena grit her teeth in fury, feeling like she was the only one played during their encounter.
Helena wonders how to retaliate for the humiliation just as a maid arrives with a new letter. The maid informs Helena that the specific letter she has been waiting for has finally arrived. Helena reacts with wide-eyed shock as she prepares to receive the correspondence from her personal maid. Helena snatches the letter and grins maliciously, realizing she has finally obtained the leverage she needs. Helena's inner monologue seethes over the audacity Rowella showed in humiliating her earlier that day.
Helena vows to break Rowella's composed facade, looking forward to her cousin's eventual downfall.
The scene shifts to a formal dining hall where Rowella and the Duke eat in silence. Duke Brietta clears his throat, causing a startled Rowella to stop eating her meal immediately. Rowella finds the atmosphere incredibly awkward and worries that the sudden dinner invitation might lead to indigestion. Rowella panics internally, wondering if she is about to be scolded for her recent behavior.
She worries that Helena already ran to the Duke to tattle about their recent confrontation. Rowella fears Helena reported her for directing scandalous stories toward the prestigious ducal household. Rowella regrets snapping at Helena in the heat of the moment without knowing the Duke's true intentions.
Noticing the Duke remains silent while drinking his wine, Rowella wonders if he really called her just to eat. Putting on a business smile, Rowella thanks her father for the rare invitation to dine together.
The Duke pauses and sets down his wine glass, questioning Rowella's claim of being happy.
Duke Brietta hums softly with a small, satisfied smile as he watches his daughter. A flashback to several hours earlier shows the Duke asking Graham about any visitors to the estate. Graham reports that Helena came to see Rowella while the Duke was away from the mansion. The Duke notes Helena's persistence in staying close to Rowella despite his daughter's usual coldness. Graham informs the Duke that there is significant gossip regarding the bounty placed on the fugitive swindler. Graham explains that most people believe the Duke issued the warrant specifically to protect Rowella's honor. Graham notes that young Duke Kellyan heard the rumors and publicly expressed his disappointment in Rowella. The Duke reacts with sudden anger at Kellyan's judgment, even though Graham reminds him of his own past disappointment. The Duke shouts that he is the only one allowed to be disappointed because he is her father.
The Duke sighs, assuming Rowella must have caused a massive scene upon hearing about Kellyan's public disappointment.
Graham clarifies that, according to the new maids, Rowella didn't seem to care about the rumors at all. Graham reveals that Rowella instead criticized those gossiping behind the Duke's back, leaving the master of the house shocked. The Duke stares at a vision of his smiling daughter, wondering if she has truly decided to change. Graham suggests that Rowella has developed a sense of trust in the Duke after he resolved her problems. Recalling her crying on the floor, Graham explains that seeing his support likely caused Rowella to trust him. Graham believes that by trusting the Duke, Rowella's perspective toward those around her has begun to broaden. The Duke is touched by the idea of her trust, but worries she is opening her heart too quickly. Graham notes that the young lady's heart is likely troubled, and the Duke agrees with his butler's assessment. Graham suggests that the Duke should share dinner with Rowella to better understand her current feelings. The Duke looks startled, noting that it has been several years since they last shared a meal together. Graham encourages the Duke to extend his hand first, since Rowella might find it difficult to approach him. Graham explains that the meal is a chance to deepen their relationship, and the Duke eventually agrees. In the present, the Duke is pleased Rowella hasn't stormed out, while she focuses on keeping him happy. Rowella explained she previously avoided him, thinking he disliked her, making her truly happy that he reached out. The atmosphere suddenly turns heavy and dark, catching Rowella off guard as the Duke's mood shifts. Rowella wonders if she said something wrong while the Duke reflects on his harsh parenting. Rowella decides to steer the conversation toward temple donations to improve her reputation stat.
Rowella explains she wants to donate as a way of repenting for her misguided past.
The Duke is surprised she wants to donate, even while her allowance is currently suspended. Maids whisper about Rowella's change as she insists that true repentance requires extraordinary effort. Rowella reflects that a good outcome for the mission is beneficial regardless of her motivations. Duke Brietta looks away with a small, satisfied smile after hearing his daughter's humble words. The Duke suggests consulting the new theology teacher about the donation process in a few days. Rowella is suddenly horrified as she remembers the many sins her original character committed. Narration explains that Rowella previously received elite theology lessons as a privilege of being the saintess. A flashback shows Rowella throwing a tantrum and demanding that her previous theology lessons stop immediately. The original Rowella insulted her teachers' faces and voices, treating them like disposable tools. In the memory, the original Rowella screams about her hatred for the boring theology classes. Priests flee in tears as the narration notes the truckload of victims Rowella previously created. Rowella sighs, realizing her past tyranny has likely exhausted every high priest in the temple. The Duke reminds Rowella of her past behavior, and she nervously acknowledges her previous faults.
Rowella promises her father that she will attend her upcoming theology classes with newfound diligence.
Rowella determines that this new teacher is a perfect opportunity to impress both her father and the temple. The scene shifts to the Grand Temple, which stands imposing and bright under a clear sky.
A priest asks Victor where he is going, noting he is walking away from the prayer hall. Victor explains he is heading to the Brietta household to begin his new teaching assignment. The priests express shock and ask if Victor knows about the Saintess's notoriously terrible behavior. They describe how the Saintess is always late and ignores lessons to focus on jewelry. The priests lament the many innocent victims she has created and question her status as Saintess. The priests encourage Victor to endure her for a few days before returning to the temple. Priest Victor Empyrean is introduced as a handsome, stoic man with long white hair and glasses. Victor begins his journey, privately noting that the Saintess does not act like one at all. Victor reflects on the rumors as he approaches the mansion to meet the infamous Lady Rowella. Rowella waits by the clock tower, realizing she has arrived much earlier than she originally planned. Rowella stands in the garden, holding a book and determined to be on time today. She reflects that clashing with the temple now would only put her at a disadvantage. Rowella anticipates the arrival of the new theology teacher, eager to show off her change. A close-up shows Rowella's hand as she tightly grips the ornate cover of her theology book. Rowella sits by the fountain and pretends to read while waiting for the teacher's arrival. Rowella realizes there are still 2 hours before class, causing her to feel bored and impatient. A memory of a crying priest emphasizes why Rowella must go beyond simply being on time. Rowella closes her book with a sharp sound, looking refined as she waits near the water. A system window explains the hidden donation mission and the coin-to-currency exchange rules available. Rowella holds a gold coin, pondering how to gather enough money for her donation goals. Rowella flips the coin while wishing it would multiply into thousands on its own. The gold coin arcs through the air as Rowella lets out a startled gasp of surprise. The coin falls into the fountain's basin with a splash, sinking quickly to the bottom. Rowella panics and reaches out, mourning the loss of her precious money to the water. She laments the loss of the coin, though she is glad it fell into a fountain. A sudden spark of inspiration hits Rowella as she stares intently at the fountain's clear water. Rowella stands up excitedly, realizing she can turn the fountain into a profitable wish fountain. She notes that wish fountains are popular modern tourist spots that could work perfectly here. Rowella plans to create a new culture where people throw coins to make their wishes. She believes this will allow everyone to pray at the fountain while helping her mission. Rowella imagines a crowd of people tossing small coins into the water to fund her donations. Reducing the financial burden will make donations more accessible to people of all classes. Gold coins pile up at the bottom of the water as the project begins. Success depends on enough people's prayers and coins accumulating within the new garden fountain. Rowella smiles brightly, embracing her role as a mere messenger for the people's prayers. Rowella drools slightly while imagining the massive profits her wish fountain plan will generate. A grand stone fountain stands at the center of the estate's beautifully manicured gardens. Rowella rushes off with her book, determined to attend her theology lesson on time. The narrator notes that selling her jewels will easily cover the fountain's construction costs. Rowella ponders where to place the fountain and how to effectively spread the word. Startled by a sudden sound, Rowella realizes that her new theology teacher has arrived. The white-haired man notes that Rowella has arrived first for their scheduled lesson today. The man announces he will be Rowella's new theology teacher starting from this day. The man introduces himself as Victor Empyrean, leaving a shocked Rowella gasping in surprise. Rowella's eyes as she recognizes the name of the man standing before her. Rowella realizes that this man is a significant envoy from the world's original story. Victor possesses immense divine power and cold logic, earning him support from the entire empire. In the original story, Victor exposes Rowella as a fake saint to support the real one. Rowella stares blankly as she remembers the decisive role Victor played in her original downfall. Rowella determines that Victor could become an incredibly dangerous adversary for her current survival. Rowella feels caught off guard because Victor appeared much earlier than in the original timeline. Victor asks if something is the matter as Rowella wonders why they are clashing now. Rowella decides to be cautious and politely tells Victor that nothing is bothering her. Rowella focuses on maintaining her composed facade to avoid provoking her potential future enemy. Victor stares silently at the pink-haired girl, noticing her unusually polite and focused demeanor. Victor internally notes that Rowella seems far less ruthless than the dark rumors suggested. Sunlight streams through the large windows of the mansion's quiet and prestigious private library. Victor asks Rowella if she is familiar with the founding history of the entire empire. Rowella summarizes that a god appeared to save the world when it fell into chaos. Victor claims her knowledge is superficial, making Rowella grumble about the original novel's limited details. Victor decides to provide a brief explanation of the world's origins for their first lesson. Long ago, good and evil were balanced, until the evil god, Ahotep, intervened in humanity. Evil quickly surpassed good, shattering the world's balance and plunging the entire land into chaos. Wicked forces caused disorder and murder, turning the world into a literal living hell.
Amidst the terrible chaos, the goddess Lucera descended from the heavens to save all humanity. A faceless, golden goddess figure symbolizes the divine intervention that brought hope to the world.
Lucera took pity on the suffering humans and provided them with her divine assistance. Lucera sealed Ahotep's remains across the empire, eventually sealing herself away with his dark heart. The goddess sacrificed her very existence so that the world could finally find lasting peace. Rowella raises her hand and asks Victor if she can pose a specific question.
Rowella looks directly at her teacher and asks for clarification regarding the evil god's heart.
Victor stops moving and reacts with visible surprise when Rowella asks where the heart was sealed. Victor quickly dismisses his reaction, claiming that the location of the heart is actually nothing. Victor explains that people generally assume the heart is sealed somewhere within the capital city. Victor confirms that the royal palace sits at the absolute center of the empire's capital. The Grand Royal Palace stands as a golden monument of power under a bright sky. The royal family acts as guardians of the divine blessings granted to the empire's citizens. Rowella recalls that Crown Prince Hildion was the strongest individual in the original story's world. Hildion Kairos was a beloved, legendary model of an emperor who could end wars in days. Rowella reflects that even the strongest crown prince could never have foreseen his own tragic death. A mysterious, hooded figure walks through a dark and quiet alleyway as night begins falling. Hildion stands in a dark alleyway, noting they have finally reached their cursed destination. A white carriage travels through the city streets under the bright and warm afternoon sun. Inside the carriage, Jane notes that her lady seems to be in a very good mood.
Rowella laughs joyfully, confirming her happiness as she prepares to launch her new public project.
Rowella announces her ambitious new plan to construct a wishing fountain in the capital square. Sitting at her desk, Rowella prepares to set her plans for the city into motion. Victor expresses surprise at the fountain idea, which Rowella explains will collect coins for wishes. Victor listens as Rowella explains the fountain allows people who can't reach the temple to donate. Rowella wears a satisfied smirk as she envisions the success of her clever new scheme. Standing up, Rowella enthusiastically declares that every single person will be involved in her plan. Rowella calls herself a genius for delegating the task to Victor and securing the high priest. At the temple, Victor presents the idea to the high priest, who orders its immediate implementation. Rowella smiles triumphantly, confident that her ambitious plan is unfolding exactly as she had originally envisioned. A shopkeeper welcomes a hooded Rowella as she enters his gemstone shop to do business. Rowella places a heavy bag of valuable items onto the counter with a loud thud. Rowella explains she is selling gems to fund the installation of her new garden fountain. The shopkeeper privately dismisses Rowella as a brat, thinking her visit is a total waste. The man decides to quickly appraise her items and send her away without any effort. The shopkeeper freezes in shock after catching a glimpse of the bag's incredibly valuable contents. A massive glowing red gemstone is revealed, surrounded by several other precious and high-quality jewels. Sweating profusely, the shopkeeper wonders how a girl like her obtained such incredibly rare treasures. Rowella reveals she has even more gems, leaving the shopkeeper completely stunned by her claim. The greedy man smiles, realizing this transaction will be extremely profitable and was not wasted. The shopkeeper suddenly lunges forward, startling Rowella with his intense and overwhelming burst of excitement. He claims his shop is too small and offers to guide her to a better jeweler. Rowella hesitates as the shopkeeper points toward a back exit, promising the other shop is nearby. Rowella worries about her maid but decides to sell the gems quickly while she is out. The shopkeeper grins maliciously as Rowella agrees to follow him into the dark back alleyway. They walk through a narrow and suspicious alleyway as the sun begins to set over city. The shopkeeper leads Rowella to a building decorated with a mounted deerhead trophy. Rowella senses a dark atmosphere and questions the shopkeeper about meeting a supposed new boss. A heavy wooden door creaks open, revealing a dimly lit room within the suspicious building. Rowella flinches as a new man's voice echoes through the room, inquiring about the customer. A tanned, muscular man named Karen introduces himself as the boss of the Bastion district. Bastion is described as a notorious underbelly district filled with dangerous weapons and illegal goods. The area is a lawless zone where criminals trade counterfeit jewels and various illicit materials. Charon stands tall as the ruler of the dangerous district, wearing a confident and predatory grin. Rowella panics upon recognizing Sharon as a merciless killer from the story's original dark timeline. The shopkeeper smirks wickedly, revealing his plan to Rowella of every single precious gem. Sharon demands to see the gems while Rowella desperately plots an escape from the deadly trap. Rowella tries to leave by claiming the gems have sentimental value, but the exit is blocked. Karen draws a sharp knife and demands that Rowella hand over all her gems right now. Rowella is horrified as Sharon explains that she cannot leave his shop alive after entering. Karen lunges to kill her, leaving a terrified Rowella certain that she will die right there.
A sudden, powerful intervention disrupts the attack just as the blade is about to strike Rowella. Hildion intervenes, knocking Sharon back and protecting Rowella from the lethal and sudden knife strike.
Charon grits his teeth in rage, asking the stranger if he is Rowella's secret accomplice. Hildion scolds Sharon for his cowardice in drawing a weapon against a defenseless woman.
Rowella stares at the back of her mysterious savior, wondering if he really came to help.
Rowella observes the man, trying to remember if he was a character in the original story.
Hildion stands protectively in front of Rowella, commanding the criminals to surrender without a fight. The scene shifts to a quiet, dimly lit interior room within the suspicious back alley Bundin.
Sharon expresses his intense rage and frustration after being bound tightly with several thick ropes. The boss of Bastion warns his captors that they will not escape his eventual revenge.
Hildion coldly dismisses the criminal's threats, daring him to try and act on his words. Hildion stands with his blade drawn, radiating a stoic and powerful authority over the captured men. Rowella reflects on the danger she narrowly escaped and decides to flee during the ongoing chaos.
Walking away, Rowella hopes they never meet again, while intending to thank him much later.
Rowella stops suddenly as a look of intense shock and realization washes over her face. A glowing system window announces that encountering Hildion has earned Rowella a valuable holy relic. Staring at her savior's back, Rowella realizes he is the original story's powerful male lead. A vision of the heroic Hildion appears as Rowella confirms the identity of the Crown Prince. Rowella panics over the unintended consequences of meeting the protagonist and receiving an unwanted holy reward.
Rowella freezes once more, struck by a sudden and alarming realization regarding her current situation.
Looking back toward Hildion, Rowella suspects that all these recent events are deeply and dangerously interconnected. Rowella feels incredibly burdened by the weight of her new mission and the unexpected holy relic.
A system notification confirms that the holy relic has been successfully transferred into Rowella's possession.
Rowella offers a joyful thanks to the man, hiding her inner panic behind a bright smile.
Rowella explains that her arrival resulted from a misunderstanding involving someone being bullied at the shop. Hildion expresses concern for her well-being and offers to personally escort her back home safely.
Rowella politely declines the offer, fearing the unpredictable variables of spending more time with the protagonist.
Hildion wishes her a safe trip as Rowella notices a mysterious, dark residue on his shoulder.
Hildion is puzzled by her observation, claiming that he cannot see any dust on his clothes. Rowella insists on helping him and reaches out to brush away the strange, dark substance herself.
A close-up shows Rowella's hand brushing the dark, crumbling matter from the prince's brown cloak. Rowella notes the substance feels unusually fragile, as if it were crumbling rather than being simple dust. A blue system window announces the successful removal of a bug and grants a new skill.
Rowella realizes the substance she removed was a system bug, likening her life to a game. Numerous status windows suddenly appear, overwhelming Rowella with a flood of noisy and unwanted information. Frustrated, Rowella screams at the windows to disappear, but the system filters her words into compliments. Hildion is startled by the sudden outburst, asking if she was just speaking to him.
Rowella is horrified that the automatic profanity filter rephrased her insult into a confusingly flirtatious remark.
Rowella frantically blames her exhaustion for the misspeak and quickly urges him to get home safely.
Hildion stands in a daze as Rowella suddenly sprints away, disappearing into the dark city streets.
Hildion stares blankly in the direction she fled, completely bewildered by the girl's strange, erratic behavior.
A hooded companion finds the situation hilarious, noting how rare it is to hear such words.
The companion, Heston, reveals he has served Hildion for 8 years and is genuinely surprised. Hildion glares at Heston, who apologizes while reflecting on the Saintess's unexpected and disguised presence. Hildion wonders what possible reason the Saintess could have for visiting such a dangerous, lawless district.
Hildion reveals that the girl secretly took the holy relic, much to his companion's visible shock.
Heston realizes the relic is gone and asks if it is wise to let her leave. Hildion remains silent while his companion reminds him that he desperately needs the relic's divine power. A vision shows Hildion suffering from a mysterious, spreading curse that causes constant pain and exhaustion.
Investigation reveals the curse is connected to the evil god Ahotep, creating a severe political crisis.
The Kairos Empire relies on faith, making a cursed prince a target for doubt and criticism. High society gossipers whisper that such an affliction would disqualify the crown prince from his royal duties. Hildion stands tall in his red uniform, concealing the agonizing burden of the curse from everyone.
Hildion explains he came for the relic to lift the curse, but cannot take it back. Heston offers to steal the relic back, but Hildion insists on enduring the pain for now. Hildion pauses, looking off into the distance with a thoughtful and focused expression on his face.
Hildion asks if the pain has worsened, but his aide replies that the situation is actually the opposite. Hildion notes with a thoughtful expression that his persistent physical pain has actually eased quite significantly. His aide wonders if being near the holy relic provided purification, but Hildion doubts the temple alone is responsible. Hildian suddenly freezes as a realization hits him, realizing there must be another cause for his recovery. As he brushes dust off his cloak, Hildian reflects on the mysterious events of the previous night. He wonders if his sudden recovery is actually a manifestation of the Saintess's unique and hidden divine ability. Narrative text questions if Rowella has ever acted as a Saintess, noting she usually avoids all official responsibilities.
Hildian asks for clarification, prompting Heston to confirm that the lady has never performed any holy duties.
Hildian orders Heston to investigate Saintess Rowella thoroughly, sensing there is much more to her than rumored. The scene transitions to Rowella quickly running away through the town square to return home.
Rowella rushes back to her estate, where her worried maid, Jane, asks why she took so long.
Rowella apologizes for the delay and prepares to head inside the mansion after her secret outing. Jane asks if the jewelry was sold, but Rowella admits she kept it because the offer was low. Jane is shocked when Rowella casually announces that she plans to sneak out again the very next day.
Rowella brags about her successful secret trip, unaware that her luck is about to run out. Rowella's father suddenly blocks her path, demanding to know where she thinks she is going in secret.
Rowella realizes in horror that she was caught by her father the exact moment she began to brag. Rowella nervously claims she intended to sell the jewelry to fund a donation as part of her penance. Her father asks why she didn't use servants, but Rowella insists on handling her own atonement personally. He glares at her, asking if that's the true reason she went all the way to Bastion. He reveals he received a letter stating the Crown Prince personally handled the operation at the Bastion site. A vision depicts Hildian heroically saving the Saintess from a dangerous thug during the chaotic events at Bastion.
The father notes that despite her secrecy, she was seen carrying a holy relic away from the scene.
Rowella panics that her identity was discovered, while her father praises her for protecting the sacred imperial item. The father stands up with a sudden, forceful movement that leaves Rowella trembling in her seat. He furiously lectures her for going alone, demanding she take guards or ask him for help next time.
As her father points at her sternly, a dazed Rowella wonders if he is actually showing genuine concern.
Narrative text confirms that the father will personally handle the disposal of the remaining jewelry for her. He asks if she has complaints, and a grateful Rowella thanks him for looking out for her interests.
Rowella asks about the relic, but her father insists that she must keep it as the rightful Saintess. Rowella is confused by the responsibility, prompting her father to ask if she has a reason to refuse.
Rowella argues the temple should keep it due to her weak power, but her father declares doubt is treason. He notes the temple's perception of her has changed and mentions an early morning letter from the high priest. Rowella is puzzled as to why the high priest wants to meet her, recalling their previously distant relationship. Her father mentions she hasn't visited since her announcement and asks if she finds the invitation burdensome. Rowella wonders if the high priest's opinion of her has truly improved as she holds the formal invitation. Rowella prepares for her meeting, unsure of what to expect from the temple's highest authority. The scene shifts to the grand and imposing exterior of the Imperial Temple on a bright day. The high priest warmly greets Rowella, thanking her for accepting an old man's invitation to the temple. Rowella resolves to be as polite as possible, treating this as their first significant official meeting. The high priest expresses his current happiness and invites Rowella to take a seat for their talk. Rowella presents the holy relic, which glows with a brilliant light as the protective box is opened. The high priest confirms the item's power, mentioning he heard of the Saintess's heroics from the imperial family. Rowella is modest about the praise, privately wondering exactly what Hildian reported to the high priest.
The high priest asks for permission to examine the relic more closely to verify its divine origin.
As he touches the stone, the high priest suddenly stops and gasps in shock at his discovery. He reveals the item isn't a relic of the goddess Lucera, but belongs to the evil god Ahope. Narrative text explains that true holy relics emit a divine aura that purifies and cleanses their surroundings. In contrast, relics of the evil god Ahope emit ominous energy and are traditionally destroyed upon discovery. Rowella panics, realizing she accidentally brought a cursed item into the temple, potentially ruining her reputation. The high priest trembles violently while clutching his golden cross, muttering in disbelief at the situation. Overcome with joy, the high priest beams radiantly as Rowella stares at him in utter confusion.
The high priest praises Victor for retrieving the relic and commends Rowella's unexpected divine contribution to its purification.
He displays a purified, glowing white stone, marveled by the Saintess's supposed holy intervention in cleansing the darkness. Rowella is baffled by the claim, but the high priest insists she is the only magnificent Saintess capable of it. Stunned, Rowella realizes she has absolutely no recollection of performing such a miraculous and powerful purification act. She recalls holding the relic earlier, merely thinking it felt warm and cozy like a common hand warmer. Rowella awkwardly attempts to explain it was all a complete accident, despite the high priest's immense, overwhelming praise. The high priest is simply relieved the darkness is gone, noting Ruella's unusually humble and polite demeanor. He mistakes her embarrassment for discouragement, unaware of her true internal panic regarding her saintly reputation. The high priest wonders if Ruella's drastic change stems from the heavy pressure of recent public scrutiny. He reflects that her past behavior might have been a defense against feeling out of place. A decorative frame highlights the high priest's conclusion that Ruella possesses more than enough true saintly qualities. He reaffirms Ruella's status, declaring that her ability to purify the relic is a truly amazing feat. Surrounded by white roses, the high priest formally guarantees that Ruella is a worthy and wonderful saintess. Ruella panics, realizing her attempt to set up a future excuse has backfired into even greater expectations.
Ruella offers a strained thank you, while Victor notes that verbal comfort seems insufficient for her distress.
Inspired, the high priest suggests a grand completion ceremony for Ruella's proposed wishing fountain project. He proposes making the event a massive celebration to solidify her positive reputation among the Empire's people. The high priest envisions showcasing Ruella as a beacon of hope during the upcoming grand public ceremony. Ruella hesitates, but Victor and the high priest enthusiastically agree to take absolute charge of the event. The high priest tells Ruella to focus on construction while the temple ensures an absolutely perfect ceremony. Ruella's eyes sparkle as she accepts the temple's help, surprised by their sudden and extreme proactiveness. Walking away, Ruella feels relieved that the temple will handle all the promotion for her new fountain. She plans to use the ceremony to further improve her public image and gather a better reputation. As Ruella ponders her dress for the event, a familiar and mocking voice suddenly interrupts her thoughts. Ruella is surprised to see someone unexpected waiting for her within the grand and quiet temple halls. Helena appears with a priest, mocking Ruella for her previous and well-known hatred of visiting the temple. Helena suggests Ruella was summoned for trouble, but Ruella quickly fires back a sharp, dismissive retort. Ruella observes the man with Helena, sensing a familiar and suspicious energy from the new male priest. She recognizes Owen Sieber, the eldest son of a count and brother to a notorious wanted scammer. Owen offers a polite apology for his younger brother's past rudeness, but Ruella remains highly skeptical. Ruella recalls rumors that Owen became a priest only because of a severe and shameful gambling addiction. A memory shows Owen gambling recklessly, leading Ruella to conclude neither of the Sieber brothers is good. Helena scolds Owen for mentioning his brother while he mockingly apologizes for his supposed second discourtesy. The red-haired woman and the priest exchange a knowing, malicious smirk while staring directly at Ruella. Fed up with their childish behavior, Ruella decides to leave before the conversation turns even more unpleasant. Ruella dismisses them and turns to walk away, hoping to avoid any further involvement with the pair. Suddenly, Helena grabs Ruella's arm and begs for her assistance with an urgent and unexpected temple crisis. Helena reveals that a sacred spirit beast has escaped, startling Ruella with the sudden and alarming news. Helena explains the creature vanished while Owen was showing it to her in the sanctuary earlier today. Faking distress, Helena laments that the temple is too large for the two of them to search. Helena asks the saintess to use her powers to help find the missing sacred temple creature. Ruella is incensed, questioning why they managed such a sacred being so carelessly in the first place. Owen mockingly suggests that the task might be too difficult to ask of her ladyship's current abilities. He claims the beast is wary of weak power, doubting Ruella's ability to handle the creature's needs. Owen laughs while suggesting they should be more considerate of Ruella's limitations as the supposed saintess. Ruella realizes they are baiting her, while Owen continues to mask his insults with fake, eloquent politeness. Ruella sighs, noting how well Helena and the corrupt priest work together to pick on her. Seeing a crowd of whispering priests, Ruella realizes Helena's true goal is to humiliate her publicly. Ruella realizes Helena orchestrated the situation to trap her into a public reputation-risking search. Sighing in frustration, Ruella accepts the inevitable nuisance and prepares to join the hunt. Owen is visibly startled when the pink-haired girl unexpectedly agrees to the difficult task. Ruella beams confidently, announcing her personal commitment to finding the missing temple spirit beast. Standing alone in the vast garden, Ruella questions her bold talk while seeking a starting point. Ruella tries to recall any useful details, remembering the creature always takes a feline form. A flashback shows a priest lecturing about feline spirit beasts being managed exclusively by the temple. Collapsing in exhaustion, Ruella regrets her impulsive wager after failing to find the cat in high places. Ruella recalls the high-stakes bet where the loser must publicly admit incompetence and resign their post. Rising with renewed determination, Ruella ponders other feline preferences since tuna is not an option. Ruella's attention is drawn to a specific garden bed as she struggles to name a familiar plant. Realization strikes Ruella as she confirms the plants before her are exactly what she needs. A nearby sign warns that the garden area is reserved for spirit beasts and strictly off-limits. A triumphant smirk crosses Rowella's face as she becomes certain she will win the wager. Rowella's confidence surges as she realizes she finally holds the advantage in the ongoing competition. In another part of the garden, Owen grumbles about hitting yet another frustrating dead end. Owen angrily berates the other priests for their failure to locate the creature after hours of searching. Owen demands his team double their efforts to beat the Saintess to the elusive spirit beast. Owen seethes with resentment toward the animal, fearing the consequences if the girl finds it first. A memory depicts Owen being forced into the priesthood after squandering his family's wealth on gambling. Owen vows to humble the princess and prevent his family's total downfall through this competition. A small feline tail disappears into a cardboard box tucked away in the lush garden. The spirit beast sleeps peacefully inside the box, surrounded by the intoxicating scent of catnip. Rowella grabs the startled cat, shouting in triumph as she successfully captures the little troublemaker. Carrying her prize, Rowella muses that cats everywhere are vulnerable to the lure of boxes and catnip.
Rowella stops mid-stride, her expression shifting as she notices something unexpected in the quiet garden.
The spirit beast purrs contentedly in Rowella's arms, making her question Helena's claims about its temperament.
Rowella approaches the priests, preparing to settle the wager and force Owen into a shameful resignation.
Owen turns around abruptly after hearing rustling in the bushes, hoping for good news at last.
A priest alerts Owen that the search is over, though not in the way he hoped.
Owen rushes forward in a panic, demanding to know the location of the missing spirit beast. Rowella reveals herself holding the purring cat, surprising the gathered priests with her sudden success. Owen is speechless with disbelief as Rowella claims the creature simply recognized its true saintess. Fuming, Owen shouts that his priests searched the entire temple without finding a single trace.
Rowella walks past him dismissively, mocking his earlier comments about the beast sensing weak holy power.
The cat suddenly hisses and strikes at Owen while Rowella notes he simply wasn't chosen. Rowella offers mock pity, asking if Owen finds her supposedly lacking power difficult to witness. The surrounding priests whisper in amazement at Rowella's apparent divine skill in calming the fickle beast. Rowella announces she will personally return the creature to avoid further injuries to the incompetent priests. Rowella taunts the trembling Owen, reminding him that he is no longer considered a priest. Owen seethes in humiliated silence while Rowella delivers her final crushing insult regarding his status.
Rowella warns the priests that the high priest might find their negligence with the beast quite troubling.
Rowella smiles knowingly at the cornered group, attributing her success to mere luck and divine intervention. Rowella calls out to the hiding Helena, startling her into revealing her position behind the pillars. Helena emerges with a forced and nervous laugh, clearly shaken by the turn of events.
Rowella notes Helena's struggle to maintain her composure after her malicious plan completely backfired.
Walking away, Rowella condescendingly offers to lend Helena her strength whenever she feels helpless again. Rowella stares down the red-haired woman, declaring there is no shame in admitting one's own weakness. A dark smirk plays on Rowella's lips, confident that this victory will silence Helena for now.
Rowella warns Helena to stop pulling stunts as she heads back, leaving the humiliated woman behind.
Rowella walks through the quiet temple garden holding the cat, finding the atmosphere rather strange.
Rowella wonders about the location of the spiritual beast shelter Victor mentioned, frustrated by her failure.
Rowella asks the cat if it knows the way, but it only responds with a meow. Rowella laughs at herself for talking to an animal before the cat suddenly leaps from her. The cat sprints away, prompting a shocked Rowella to shout and demand to know its destination. Rowella chases the cat through the garden, pleading with the animal to slow down and wait. Out of breath, Rowella worries that losing the spirit beast now will lead to her ruin. Rowella runs down a stone path, determined to catch the creature while leaves scatter in wind. Rowella stops and looks around, realizing she has become lost while following the elusive spirit beast. She discovers a ruined, overgrown area of the temple, questioning how such a place exists there. Rowella shivers as the atmosphere turns eerie, feeling increasingly desperate to find the cat and leave. Spotting a tail flicking behind a stone pillar, Rowella shouts in triumph that she has found it.
Rowella lunges to capture the cat but stops short upon discovering a man on the ground.
Rowella is startled, wondering who the man is and why he is in the secluded area. A close-up reveals the man's intense distress as he gasps for air while lying in grass. Narrated text identifies the suffering man as the crown prince, adding a layer of gravity. The high priest apologizes to the prince, explaining that he cannot resolve the current condition. The priest notes that his holy power is ineffective against the mysterious curse afflicting the prince. Hildian asks if the priest can at least alleviate his pain, and the priest promises silence. The prince looks up in surprise as the high priest mentions the name of Lady Rowella. The priest explains that Rowella brought a holy relic and had already purified it herself. The high priest suggests that Rowella's immense holy power might be effective in neutralizing the prince's curse. A close-up shows the priest's hand on a brown cloak as he continues his suggestion. The high priest formally advises the crown prince to seek help from the saintess for his condition. Back in the garden, Hildion realizes that the momentary disappearance of his pain wasn't a coincidence. Hildion grips his chest, struggling with the difficult decision of whether to trust the girl. A purple energy path symbolizes the prince's internal conflict regarding the truth about his cursed state. Hildion collapses in agony as a sudden and violent wave of physical pain surges through him. Gritting his teeth, Hildion curses the recurring pain that continues to torment him in the garden. Hildion fights to stay conscious, fearing what will happen if he loses his senses while alone. Ruella stands over the fallen prince, her expression filled with shock at his intense suffering.
Ruella notices the prince's cold sweat and frantically asks where he is hurt while reaching out.
Hildion looks up with glassy, pained eyes, his face pale as he struggles to endure agony.
Ruella is frozen in surprise, her face framed by white flowers as she stares at the prince.
Hildion wonders if he is dreaming, but Ruella insists it is real and asks why he collapsed. The prince groans in pain while Ruella panics, calling out to him and worrying about him.
Ruella decides she cannot carry him alone and prepares to run and find someone for help.
Hildion suddenly reaches out and grabs Ruella's wrist, preventing her from leaving him alone. The prince holds her hand tightly while gasping for breath, stopping her attempt to go for aid. Hildion looks up with a strained and desperate expression, his face showing his physical torment. The prince begs Ruella not to leave him, his voice filled with a desperate need for presence. Ruella stares back with a confused and intense look, her eyes wide at the prince's plea.
Ruella is bewildered by the prince's strange behavior, questioning whether he has lost his mind.
She tells him to let go of her hand, arguing that now is not the time for jokes. Hildion gasps, asking her to simply touch his back or offer some form of physical comfort. Ruella is baffled by the request, comparing his need for a soothing touch to a child's request.
Ruella agrees to do as he wishes just so he will release his tight grip on her.
Ruella stops mid-motion, her expression shifting to surprise as she notices something unexpected on the prince. She recognizes the strange, flickering bug matter manifesting over the prince's body, similar to before. Ruella wonders if this is another system mission, despite the absence of a visible status window.
Ruella stares intently at the dark, flickering substance manifesting on the suffering prince's shoulder.
Hildion gasps in visible agony as Ruella wonders if the bug has grown larger. Observing the prince's distress, Ruella realizes the dark matter is more substantial than before. Narrative text recalls the original story where Hildion was consumed by an unknown, tragic curse. Ruella ponders if the strange system bug is directly connected to the prince's agonizing condition. Watching Hildion struggle, Ruella fears that leaving the bug alone might cause a dangerous rampage. Narrative text emphasizes the dread of reaching the same tragic outcome as the original novel. Deciding to intervene, Ruella asks the prince for permission to offer him a brief touch.
Ruella reaches out and brushes her hand against the prince's back to remove the bug.
Ruella is delighted to see the dark, glitching matter finally dissolving under her holy touch. Ruella asks the prince if he feels any better now that the substance is gone. Breathing a sigh of relief, Hildion confirms that he feels much calmer and less pained. The two share a quiet, intimate moment in the garden while the surrounding flowers bloom. Flustered by their proximity, Ruella quickly backs away while claiming she did nothing special. A system sound captures Ruella's attention as she reacts with a look of pure surprise. A blue window announces the successful removal of the bug and grants a reputation reward. Ruella reads the notification, confirming that the prince's intense pain was indeed bug-related.
Ruella watches the window fade, hoping that the prince will remain in stable condition now.
Hildion stands tall and refreshed, exhaling a deep breath as his physical strength finally returns. Narrative text reflects on the dire possibility that Hildion could have died alone in solitude. A somber message highlights the tragedy of a lonely death in a place with no witnesses. Looking at the prince, Ruella realizes she truly wishes to prevent such a dark fate.
Ruella offers her future assistance to the prince, who is visibly surprised by her sudden kindness.
A thought bubble reveals Ruella's confusion regarding the prince's lack of guards in the garden.
Ruella stares at Hildion, questioning if he is currently moving around the city in disguise.
Hildion meets her gaze with a calm, steady expression as the tension between them lingers. Hildion thanks her for the help but requests that she keep his location a secret. The prince explains he found this abandoned sanctuary as a child and uses it for peace. Ruella finds his secret hiding spot quite charming and promises not to reveal it. Hildion thanks her again before asking why the saintess is visiting such a remote area. Ruella's eyes widen as she suddenly remembers she was originally looking for the spirit creature. Panicked, Ruella explains the creature vanished and asks if it ran away during their conversation. A small, light-colored cat walks through the grass right next to the hem of Ruella's dress. Ruella captures the spirit beast cat, relieved it stayed while Hildion asks why it is there.
Ruella explains she got lost while trying to return the fickle creature to the sanctuary.
The cat nuzzles Rowella affectionately as she prepares to take it home at long last.
Hildion notes that the creature seems unusually attached to her despite its naturally aloof nature.
Rowella plans to consult the high priest about the creature, surprising Hildion with her mentions. Rowella asks if Hildion will be safe alone, but he reassures her that his aid waits. Rowella feels better about leaving, noting that his complexion has significantly improved since her intervention. Rowella sprints away with the cat in her arms, leaving the bewildered prince standing alone.
Hildion watches her disappear into the distance, clutching his chest with a faint, thoughtful smile. Back at the mansion, Jane shouts for her young lady as a new day begins.
The grand estate features a beautiful, flowing fountain that sparkles under the bright morning sun.
The spirit beast cat sits comfortably on a rug, letting out a very large yawn. Jane is completely smitten by the cat's cuteness, squealing with joy at its adorable movements.
A dialogue bubble expresses Jane's shock that Rowella actually brought a temple creature home. Rowella admits to her maid that the situation was entirely unexpected for her as well. Rowella smiles warmly while watching the cat, wondering what name would suit the little creature.
The high priest beams with pride, praising Rowella for her ability to tame the elusive beast. High priest notes the cat's poor health, revealing Owen neglected it before Rowella scolds his incompetence.
The startled feline suddenly leaps away from Rowella's reach during their serious, intense conversation.
The high priest admits the beast dislikes his touch and requires holy power for its recovery.
Rowella reacts with pure shock when the priest asks her to personally care for the creature.
The high priest dismisses Rowella's hesitation, insisting her holy abilities make her the perfect guardian.
Beaming with delight, the priest leaves the responsibility entirely in the stunned saintess's hands.
Rowella considers how successfully nursing the beast back to health could boost her reputation. Jane asks if the Duke permitted the arrangement, and Rowella credits the cat's undeniable cuteness.
A memory shows the Duke in proud father mode, happily granting permission to keep the creature.
Jane suggests giving the spirit creature a proper name instead of just calling it a cat. Rowella decides on a simple name to prevent herself from getting too emotionally attached later. The cream-colored cat lets out a cute wink while lounging comfortably on the soft bedding.
Jane is overwhelmed by the cat's charm, while Rowella feels relieved it likes the attention.
Rowella officially names the creature Jelly, asking it to cooperate during their short time together.
A gentle hand strokes Jelly's head while the cat responds with a soft, content purr. Mary suddenly bursts into the room, startling Rowella while she is relaxing with her pet.
The breathless maid presents a formal wooden box that requires the young lady's immediate attention.
A decorative envelope rests inside the box, clearly sent from the Grand Imperial Palace.
The maids wonder about the Crown Prince's intentions as Rowella inspects the mysterious new arrival.
Rowella assumes the letter contains simple gratitude regarding the events at the abandoned temple garden.
Rowella's expression turns to one of utter disbelief as she reads the unexpected contents within.
The letter requests a private, in-person meeting to discuss a matter of great importance.
Rowella stands frozen in surprise at the formal invitation to visit the Imperial Palace alone.
Vibrant pink flowers bloom across the scene, signaling a transition in the unfolding royal narrative.
Hildion writes at his desk, expressing interest in Rowella's unique donation fountain project.
Rowella grips the paper tightly, processing the prince's offer to provide a site for the fountain. The text emphasizes the prince's desire for a private meeting to settle the project details.
Rowella wonders why the crown prince is going out of his way to offer such help. Realization strikes Rowella as she remembers the specific effect of her touch on the suffering prince.
A romantic flashback depicts Rowella and Hildion sharing a close moment in the flower garden.
Rowella concludes the fountain is an excuse and he actually wants her to break his curse. A flustered chibi Rowella worries about the implications of the prince's hidden agenda.
Rowella downplays the letter's significance to her maids, calling it a simple invitation to talk.
Jane squeals with romantic excitement, though Rowella remains convinced he only wants her holy power. The maids eagerly ask if she will accept, while Rowella carefully weighs her next move.
Rowella realizes the proposal offers her significant advantages with very little personal risk involved.
A confident smirk grows on Rowella's face as she decides to seize the royal opportunity.
Rowella beams while announcing her decision to visit the palace and meet with the prince.
The grand and ornate towers of the Crown Prince's palace sparkle under the bright daylight. Dressed in a stunning gown, Rowella politely pays her respects to Hildion upon her arrival. Hildion graciously thanks Rowella for accepting his invitation and welcomes her into his private study.
Rowella accepts the prince's hospitality and prepares to begin their high-stakes private discussion.
A close-up captures Rowella's composed expression as she prepares to navigate the prince's request. Hildion glances away with a subtle look of unease as the two begin their meeting. Noticing her gaze, Hildion asks if there is something unusual on his face. Rowella laughs off his concern, claiming she is simply happy to have this private audience. Hildion appears slightly flustered by her comment, while Rowella wonders if her words were strange. Looking toward the bright balcony, Rowella politely inquires about the prince's current physical health.
Surrounded by elegant tea and sweets, Hildian credits Ruella for his significantly improved condition. They sit together at a lavish table where Ruella asks if his proposal is for gratitude. Ruella laughs off the prince's cliché speech, thanking him for his high regard for her fountain project.
Ruella asks about the fountain site, and Hildian identifies Vention, a commercial district bordering Bastion's alleys.
Ruella panics at the mention of Bastion, while Hildian notes it is where they first met. A visual sequence illustrates Vention's transition from a bustling merchant hub into a lawless black market area. The atmosphere shifts as narrative text describes the imperial family's efforts to restore safety and commerce. A bright vision of the revitalized district appears as Hildian assures Ruella about the site's future. Ruella realizes Hildian truly invited her for the project, setting aside her earlier suspicions of hidden agendas. Ruella ponders her goal of building the fountain, regardless of the location's current reputation or history. Ruella hesitates to answer immediately, prompting Hildian to inquire about the reason for her sudden pause. Ruella explains that as a first-time visitor to Bastion, she cannot judge the site so quickly. Ruella requests a field inspection before deciding, asking the prince for the location's exact coordinates. Hildian agrees that the project is too significant to finalize without first inspecting the site together. Hildian suggests scheduling another appointment where he will act as her personal guide to the location. Ruella is visibly startled by the prince's offer to personally escort her through the commercial district. Ruella tries to decline his help, but Hildian insists that trust is essential in their royal transaction. Hildian formally requests permission to guide her, leaving Ruella surprised by his uncharacteristic and persistent helpfulness. Ruella worries about encountering dangerous figures like Charon if she ventures into the unknown alleys alone. Ruella bows respectfully as Hildian tells her to leave the matter of her safety to him. Ruella says goodbye and looks forward to their next meeting while preparing to depart the palace. Hildian offers to escort her to her carriage, but Ruella insists such formality is unnecessary. Ruella suddenly notices the system bug and shouts in alarm while a confused Hildian asks what happened. Ruella panics over the bug's reappearance, wondering when it manifested on the prince's shoulder again. Hildian questions Ruella's reaction as she worries the glitch will negatively impact his physical condition once more. Ruella urgently asks about the prince's health, but he is bewildered by her sudden proximity and concern. Ruella's internal monologue notes that the prince's current state isn't as critical as their previous encounter. Ruella is shocked by the bug's quick return, while Hildian remains puzzled by her intense, focused stare. Ruella fears that ignoring the bug will lead to another agonizing collapse for the suffering prince. Ruella lunges forward and surprises Hildian by suddenly closing the physical distance between them in the study. Hildian is startled and calls out Ruella's name as she leans unexpectedly close to his chest. Ruella tells the prince to stay still, while she moves with intense focus to address the bug. Hildian asks what she is doing as Ruella rests her head against him during her sudden intervention. Ruella wonders if touching multiple spots will help as she brushes her hand against the prince's back. A close-up captures Hildian's stunned and flustered reaction to Ruella's sudden and intimate physical contact. Ruella worries about the scandal but decides to touch him thoroughly for maximum preventative effect against bugs. Ruella ignores the consequences and embraces Hildian, determined to remove every trace of the dark glitch matter. The dark matter dissolves under Ruella's hands as her holy power purifies the prince's burdened shoulder. Ruella continues her hug as a preventative measure, hoping it will stabilize Hildian's health for a while. Ruella asks how the prince feels while privately wondering why his complexion has turned so red. Hildian looks away with a blush, appearing flustered and speechless after the saintess's unexpected and long embrace. Ruella shouts for him to step back while he tries to process the sudden intimate encounter. Ruella panics at her own rudeness and frantically apologizing, swearing she had no lewd intentions toward him. Hildian covers his mouth and blushes, thanking Ruella for worrying about his health despite her eccentric behavior. Ruella is relieved by the prince's generous heart and relieved he didn't take offense at her actions. Ruella takes her leave, promising to meet the prince again for the upcoming estate tour. Hildian bids her a safe journey home as the meeting concludes in a flurry of pink flowers. Ruella walks away quickly, thinking she needs to escape before the atmosphere becomes even more awkward. Hildian touches his neck, reflecting on how Ruella reached out to him without any hesitation or fear. Hildian smiles to himself, concluding that this strange and refreshing dynamic with Ruella isn't so bad. A mysterious, dark-haired woman watches the scene from behind a fan, questioning Ruella's identity and presence. The woman asks whose daughter the girl is, noting this is the prince's first royal female guest. Prince Hildian questions the sudden return of his visitor, noting she was supposed to be out. A strikingly beautiful and elegantly dressed woman is formally identified as Empress Nikita Kairos. The text confirms that the formidable Empress Nikita Kairos is indeed the crown prince's mother. Narrative text describes the Empress as a woman who defies the typical rigid standards of nobility. Clad in adventurous attire, Nikita is described as someone who prioritizes personal enjoyment and interest. Walking through a field of flowers, her enduring reputation as a free spirit is highlighted. A flashback shows the Empress joyfully escaping the palace for sightseeing while her frantic guards protest.
Hildeon envies her freedom, while Nikita snaps her fan shut, demanding he answer her previous question.
Pointing her fan at her son, Nikita demands to know the identity of the mysterious girl. Hildeon avoids eye contact, blushing as he dismisses the encounter as a typical meeting between nobles. Hildeon finds his mother's focused attention annoying while Nikita stares at him with deep, playful suspicion.
Nikita toys with her fan, noting that he is unusually secretive about this particular official meeting.
Nikita shocks the prince by bluntly asking if the mysterious girl is actually his secret lover. Hildeon shouts in flustered protest, vehemently denying the romantic accusation while his mother laughs mockingly. Hildeon argues they have only met 3 times, inadvertently falling into her trap regarding relationship progression. Nikita gleefully teases him about unrequited love, while Hildeon continues to shout his desperate, red-faced denials. Laughing heartily, Nikita admits that even though he is her child, teasing him is simply fun. Hildeon sighs, realizing that his mother's teasing nature makes her incredibly difficult for him to handle. Attempting to regain his composure, the Crown Prince shifts the focus back to a serious matter. Hildeon stares out the window, silently wondering if the Saintess safely departed the Imperial Palace grounds. Watching him intently, Nikita concludes that her son is clearly showing interest for the first time. Narrative text explains that Hildeon's childhood fears made him hesitate to form close relationships with anyone. A flashback shows a young Hildeon standing back-to-back with a scholarly young boy in formal attire. Nikita reflects that it is a pity her handsome son is so socially withdrawn and critical.
Nikita watches her blushing son with an amused expression, finding his unusual reaction to be quite interesting.
A mischievous smirk crosses the Empress's face as she admits her growing curiosity regarding the situation. Inside her carriage, Rowella leans back, reflecting on the exhaustion of removing the prince's system bugs. Rowella wonders if her fatigue stems from the private meeting with such an intimidatingly handsome man.
Feeling the tension finally leave her body, Rowella decides to close her eyes until she reaches home.
A violent jolt shatters the peace, causing Rowella to scream in pain as she hits the seat. Clutching her head, Rowella demands an explanation while her worried driver checks if she is all right. Rowella frantically asks if they hit someone, while the driver attempts to explain the chaotic situation outside. A young blonde woman screams in terror, begging someone to stop their aggressive and unwanted behavior. A man in orange harasses the girl, claiming she hit on him first while she desperately resists. Rowella steps out of her carriage as the driver explains that the people jumped into the road. Rowella is furious, noting the man's behavior reminds her of problematic customers from her past life. A memory shows Rowella as a convenience store worker firmly rejecting a drunk customer's delusional advances. Rowella tells her driver to wait while she turns to intervene in the harassment occurring nearby. The man continues to threaten the blonde girl, warning her that her resistance is no longer amusing. A powerful blow strikes the man's head, stopping his assault with a sudden and violent impact. The man recoils in shock, shouting about his status as a count while insulting Rowella's upbringing. Rowella stands tall and defiant, coolly asserting her own status as a lady despite the count's anger. The count is paralyzed with fear, mistakenly identifying Rowella as the formidable Lady Brietta in his panic. Rowella mockingly offers to let the count discuss upbringing directly with her powerful father, the Duke. With a dark, intimidating aura, Rowella invites the terrified count to accompany her back to her mansion. The count flees in terror, screaming apologies as Rowella and the blonde girl watch him run away. Rowella scoffs at the man's cowardice, dismissing the entire conflict as a fuss over absolutely nothing. The blonde girl collapses from the shock, and Rowella realizes the poor woman's legs simply gave out. Rowella reaches out with a kind expression, asking if the girl is all right and offering her assistance. The blonde girl stares up at Rowella in utter disbelief, shocked to run into her in this location. A hand suddenly captures Rowella's wrist as a loud voice calls out to her. A blonde girl looks at Rowella with pure adoration, declaring herself a massive fan. Rowella stares blankly in utter confusion, completely bewildered by the girl's sudden, enthusiastic proclamation. The girl reiterates her devotion while Rowella wonders why anyone would claim to be her fan. Rowella notes the girl's apprentice priestess attire, confused since temple staff usually despise her past tyranny. The blonde girl tightly grips Rowella's hands, her expression overflowing with intense admiration and excitement. The girl praises Rowella's kindness for saving her, hailing her as the ultimate true saintess. Rowella feels awkward under the praise while the girl prepares to present a special handmade gift. The girl reveals a meticulously crafted small statue designed perfectly in Rowella's elegant, holy likeness. Rowella is shocked that the girl made it herself, despite her modest claims of lacking skill. Rowella is stunned by the statue's quality, internally acknowledging it is crafted at a professional level. Rowella asks for the girl's name, and she nervously identifies herself as the apprentice Hamel. Rowella leans in exceptionally close to Hamel's face, making the startled girl jump back in surprise. Rowella realizes Hamel's incredible talent is exactly what she needs for her fountain centerpiece statue. Rowella asks Hamel to become her official sculptor, leaving the young apprentice completely stunned and speechless. Hamel expresses her sincere interest in the wonderful offer, but suddenly hesitates with a troubled look. To Rowella's immense shock and disappointment, Hamel formally declines the offer to be her sculptor. Rowella's driver interrupts the tense moment, suggesting the young lady depart before a crowd gathers. Onlookers whisper about the unusual sight of the High Saintess and an apprentice sitting together outside. Rowella realizes the setting is inappropriate, admitting she was too distracted by the statue's high quality. Rowella reaches out a hand toward Hamel, indicating she is not yet finished with their meeting. With a charming and warm smile, Rowella tells Hamel that she wants to know more. Rowella invites Hamel back to her estate, and the ecstatic girl promises to follow her anywhere. Back at the mansion, Rowella notes Hamel's friendly personality but remains curious about her refusal. Watching Hamel closely, Rowella wonders if there is a hidden story behind her declining the job. The grand and luxurious estate grounds are bathed in the golden, peaceful light of the sunset. A thought bubble expresses Hamel's disbelief that she is actually having tea with the Saintess. Hamel's hands shake uncontrollably as she holds her tea, reflecting her intense nervousness and excitement. Hamel feels as though she is in a dream, unable to stop her body from trembling. Rowella gently asks Hamel to calm down before she accidentally spills the tea on her dress. They sit together in the parlor as Hamel agrees to regain her composure for their serious talk. Rowella asks Hamel to explain the specific reason why she turned down the official sculptor position. Rowella reassures Hamel that she isn't being blamed and doesn't have to share if it's difficult. Hamel looks down at her tea in silence, appearing troubled as she contemplates her hidden past.
Hamel decides to share her embarrassing situation, feeling she can finally trust the kind-hearted Saintess.
Hamel reveals that before becoming an apprentice priestess, she was a mage from the magic tower.
Rowella's expression turns to one of pure shock at the revelation of Hamel's former prestigious status.
A vision of Hamel's past shows her as a highly talented mage possessing vast magical knowledge. Narrative text explains that while Hamel loved magic research, her time at the tower was difficult. The flashback reveals messy mages who spent days without sleep or hygiene while obsessed with their research. Hamel covers her nose in disgust, recalling the filthy environment that smelled like rot and decay. Narrative text confirms the tower mages were so research-obsessed that they almost never bathed themselves properly. Hamel ran out of the magic tower, unable to endure the disgusting and unbreathable environment any longer. After leaving, Hamel barely survived by taking odd jobs in the village, like organizing messy library books.
A close-up shows a few small copper coins, illustrating the meager earnings from her manual labor.
Hamel laments her lack of work and money, worrying about how she will continue to survive. Hamel realizes her unstable life must change and decides to search for a more steady job. Hamel notices a massive crowd gathering in the street and wonders what event is drawing everyone. The townspeople shout for the Saintess as a grand carriage begins to move through the cheering crowd.
The scene depicts the public celebration of Rowella's arrival following her birth as the new Saintess.
Rowella is depicted as a holy figure while people plead for her divine guidance. Hamel watches Rowella from the crowd, recognizing her as the rumored new Saintess. Hamel is awestruck by Rowella's beauty and divinity, longing to stay by her side. Determined to change her life, Hamel prepares to take a bold step forward. Hamel tears enthusiastically, dedicating her future efforts and devotion entirely to the Saintess. Hamel begs Among to let her become a priestess, eventually securing a stable job. Hamel enjoys making miniature statues of the Saintess as a fulfilling secret creative hobby. A single coin represents Hamel's realization that artistic passion cannot sustain her needs. Hamel panics after spending all her meager savings on materials for her beloved statues. Hamel walks dejectedly, desperate to find a way to fund her expensive hobby. Hamel stops in front of a wall where an interesting public notice catches her eye. Rowella screams in horror after seeing a predatory loan poster advertising predatory interest rates. Rowella furiously lectures Hamel about the illegality of such absurd interest rates and dangerous loans.
Hamel admits she borrowed money for statues, making a despairing Rowella call her foolish.
Hamel explains her debt makes her a liability who could ruin the Saintess's reputation.
Rowella sighs deeply as she finally understands the true reason behind Hamel's earlier refusal.
A close-up captures Rowella's sharp, determined gaze as she refuses to accept Hamel's situation. Rowella stands up abruptly and declares that she will not give up on Hamel. Rowella mentions the illegal loan shark company while Hamel looks on with a bewildered expression. With a confident smile, Rowella vows to personally dismantle the predatory company for Hamel. Hamel is completely stunned and asks if the lady truly intends to clear her debt. Ruella clarifies she will destroy the entire pawnshop, ignoring Hamel's concerns about the trouble.
Ruella explains that investing heavily in such unique talent is a standard and necessary practice.
Hamel is overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude, moved to tears by the Saintess's kindness.
Narrative text explains that the criminals evade capture because reporting them never yields evidence. Ruella realizes they need solid evidence to take down the thorough and secretive organization. Ruella asks Hamel for the pawnshop's layout, but the girl knows very little details.
Hamel suddenly recalls a potentially important detail about a suspicious man she once saw. Hamel describes seeing a man carrying a precious-looking item away from the illegal pawnshop. A close-up reveals the suspicious item was a document envelope, suggesting a secret transaction.
Ruella deduces that the man's destination must be where the real evidence is kept.
Ruella leans in close, aggressively demanding the location of the man's destination from Hamel.
Hamel promises to share everything if Ruella steps back, finding the Saintess's presence bright.
The scene shifts to a dark, starry night sky above a dense and foreboding forest. A large, multi-story wooden building stands hidden deep within the woods at night. Hooded thugs exchange a document envelope, warning each other to keep the records safe.
The receiver boasts about his competence, assuring his partner that he never makes mistakes.
The thugs laugh and head inside the building, unaware they are currently being watched. Two spies hide in the grass, whispering to each other about the overheard dialogue. Hildion and his aide confirm that the envelope likely contains the important transaction ledger. The aide celebrates their luck, believing they will soon catch the criminals with evidence.
Hildion cautions his aide to stay alert, noting the criminals have evaded capture for years.
Hildion's face shows intense focus as he emphasizes the need for caution during their mission. Narrative text confirms their goal is to obtain evidence to destroy the pawnshop for good. Back in the palace, the aide reports that certain areas of bastions still require work.
The aide identifies a specific location in Vention that serves as an underworld hub.
The aide names the Hambar pawnshop, an illegal operation known for frequent past reports. He explains that the lack of evidence during searches forced the criminals' immediate release.
Hildion is distressed by the malicious scale of the operation and asks about victims.
The aide reveals the victims span 3 villages, leaving Hildion shocked by the magnitude.
Hildion's aide notes the pawnshop targeted the poor, while the prince asks if the victims were investigated for information.
Adjusting his glasses, the aide admits he intended to investigate but was stopped by a disturbing discovery. Prince Hildion looks on with a shocked and grim expression, demanding to know what the aide found. Narrative text highlights the impossibility of so many people vanishing simultaneously without a sinister underlying cause. Dark imagery depicts the pawnshop's reach extending beyond illegal interest rates to the actual theft of human lives. Hildion realizes the situation is too large for local knights and must be handled with extreme personal caution.
Hildion worries that Lady Brietta might be harmed by this organization near the site he recommended to her.
Standing abruptly, the prince orders his aide to prepare for an immediate departure to investigate the matter personally. Clenching his fist, Hildion declares his determination to find the necessary evidence against the pawnshop with his own hands. Under the cover of a dark night, Hildion waits in a dense forest, alert to nearby sounds.
The aide reports the targets are moving, prompting Hildion to order a pursuit to track their secret documents.
The moon shines brightly over the landscape as the sound of galloping horses echoes through the night. The rustle of movement fills the air as the secret pursuit continues through the dark wilderness. A vast and dense cornfield stretches across the landscape, hidden deep within the woods under the starlight. Arriving on horseback, Hildion remarks on the impressive and suspicious scale of the massive, hidden cornfield.
The aide observes that their target has disappeared inside the field, indicating the trail leads directly into the stalks.
Clear footprints mark a path through the grass, leading deeper into the heart of the overgrown field. Dismounting, Hildion notes the unusually large stalks and deduces the field serves as a literal wall for illegal documents. Staring at the towering plants, Hildion concludes that the field was deliberately cultivated to hide something important from view.
Hildion reflects on the lapse in imperial security that allowed such a dangerous and secretive location to exist.
Hildion announces his intent to enter the field on foot while his aide acknowledges the order. The two men move stealthily through the dense corn, their dark cloaks helping them blend into the shadows.
Hildion notes the field's endless nature, realizing how easily someone could be harmed here without any witnesses noticing.
A large, multi-story wooden building is revealed, tucked away in a clearing deep within the vast cornstalks. Crouching low, the aide whispers that they have finally located the pawnshop's secret base of operations. Hildion spots the man they were tracking earlier and confirms his presence near the entrance of the building. When the aide asks if they should follow, Hildion counsels patience to see if more accomplices are inside. Hildion's focus shifts instantly as he detects the sound of unexpected footsteps approaching their current position. He wonders if the newcomer is another member of the criminal organization joining the meeting. To his utter shock, a pink-haired woman in a hooded cloak appears, sneaking through the field nearby. Hildian and his aide are frozen in disbelief as they recognize the mysterious intruder as Lady Brietta. Hildian panics, wondering if she received an oracle and realizing he must move to protect her from danger. Thugs discuss the arrival of the ledgers, emphasizing that being followed would mean the end of their operation. A red-haired thug laughs arrogantly, boasting that they will simply kill anyone foolish enough to follow them. Overhearing the conversation, Hildian is disgusted to confirm these men are indeed the ruthless criminals from the pawnshop. A close-up of Hildian's face shows his growing desperation as he realizes the lady is walking into a trap. Unaware of the danger, Rowella moves through the shadows as a thug stands nearby, ready to strike. Hildian grits his teeth in a moment of intense focus, repeating that the lady is in grave, immediate danger. Rowella reflects on arriving at the mansion based on Hamel's information, surprised to find such a large, secret estate. Determined to find evidence to dismantle the pawnshop, Rowella resolves to enter the building with extreme care.
Rowella's heart sinks as she overhears the thugs talking about being followed and the importance of the ledger. Realizing someone might be right outside her position, Rowella panics as she finds herself with nowhere to hide.
The thugs stand just on the other side of a wall, and Rowella fears she is about to be discovered. Rowella's eyes widened in terror as a gloved hand suddenly reaches out and captures her from behind. Hearing a faint rustle, the red-haired thug turns around with a suspicious and predatory look on his face. The thug shouts into the darkness, demanding to know who is hiding near the side of the building. The two criminals draw their daggers and scan the area, ready to kill whoever is lurking in the shadows. After a tense moment of silence, the red-haired thug scoffs, dismissing the noise as his own imagination. As the thugs laugh and walk away, it is revealed that Hildian has pulled Rowella into a safe hiding spot. Rowella is relieved the danger has passed, but finds herself wondering who could have possibly come to her aid. Rowella is shocked to realize the mysterious person who saved her is Hildian. Hildian apologizes for grabbing her and confirms that the dangerous thugs have finally departed. Rowella takes a deep breath to recover her composure after the terrifying encounter. Rowella expresses her utter astonishment and asks Hildian why he is at the pawnshop base. Hildian explains he is investigating and asks why the young lady is at this location. Rowella insists she is not lost, prompting Hildian to ask for her specific purpose. Rowella internally panics, realizing she cannot admit she is there to hire a private sculptor. Adopting a holy persona, Rowella asks the prince if he has forgotten her divine role. Rowella claims she received a divine oracle to purge the wicked pawnshop troubling the empire. Hildian is impressed, noting she has received another oracle so soon after her arrival at Bastion. Hildian feels embarrassed as crown prince that the empire requires such constant divine intervention. Hildian bows respectfully and vows to oversee the empire with much greater care from now on. The aide reports that the two men they were tracking have disappeared beyond the cornfield. Hildian orders his aide to escort the lady home while he continues the investigation personally. Rowella grabs Hildian and refuses to leave, startling him with her sudden and firm physical contact. Rowella reflects on her promise to Hamel and feels compelled to solve the matter herself. Rowella argues she can protect herself and must stay to fulfill the Oracle's divine mission. Rowella pleads with a sorrowful expression, begging the prince not to send her away yet. Hildian is flustered by her close presence and reluctantly yields to her persistent request. Hildian asks her to release his hand while his aide teases the prince's obvious embarrassment. Rowella notices the prince's red face and worries she has committed some grave social error. In a chibi scene, the aide mockingly notes how flustered the prince is before the saintess. They sneak into the mansion and discover that there are currently no guards inside. Hildian deduces the remote location led the criminals to be careless with their interior security. Hildian looks around the corridor for the third man they tracked to the building earlier. The aide notes that the man has vanished and wonders where he could have done. A man carrying a bag over his shoulder walks away into another part of the building. Rowella notes the danger and urges they find evidence before they are discovered by the criminals. Hildian suggests they begin their search by investigating a specific room down the hallway. A heavy door creaks open to reveal a dark office filled with numerous records and books. They find a massive hoard of hidden illegal documents and ledgers within the secret room. Hildian examines the paperwork, searching for strong evidence to use against the pawnshop organization. Rowella offers to assist the investigation by checking the contents of the nearby bookshelves. Rowella is furious after discovering the predatory and illegal interest rates recorded in a ledger. Rowella notices something strange while scanning the books and pauses to investigate the find. Rowella finds a medical record detailing daily doses of mysterious blue pills for the borrowers. Hildian notes that the pills appear in the records of every person who renewed contracts. Hildian admits he has never encountered this specific type of medicine within the Empire before. An ominous vision suggests the pawnshop is illegally manufacturing and forcing borrowers to take drugs. Hildian decides they have enough evidence and should depart before the criminals return. A thug returns from the bathroom, alerting the spies that someone is approaching the room. The thug enters the room and is confused to find his associates are not there. The thug drops his documents and realizes something is amiss as he scans the area.
The thug notes the scattered documents and the empty spaces on the bookshelf with suspicion. The thug turns around with an angry expression, sensing that an intruder is nearby. The thug screams about an intruder and demands that they show themselves immediately. The thug continues to shout into the shadows, threatening the hidden intruders with death.
Hildion and Ruella hide behind a cabinet, their hearts pounding in the silent, tense room.
Both Ruella and Hildion blush as they hide in extremely close and intimate proximity. Hildion holds Ruella protectively while they wait for the searcher to finally leave the area.
Ruella feels Hildion is too close and is startled to hear his racing heartbeat. Ruella wonders why the prince's heartbeat is getting progressively louder as they hide together.
A focused Hildion remains silent, while Ruella confirms the rapid heartbeat is indeed his.
Ruella panics and asks if the prince is struggling to breathe in their cramped hiding spot.
Hildion looks flustered, quickly assuring the lady that his physical state is not the problem. The two remain in an intimate position as Ruella questions his denial, and he groans. Both characters immediately apologize and blame themselves for the awkward and lingering physical contact. Hildion tells her to endure the proximity until the searching criminal finally leaves the room.
Ruella notices her own heart is now racing as she stares at the prince's face.
As the thug departs, Ruella wonders if she has caught the prince's nervous excitement. The criminal shouts a final death threat as he runs out to continue his search. A moment of silence follows as they confirm the intruder has finally left the office. Emerging from behind the cabinet, Hildion expresses relief that they successfully avoided being discovered. Hildion announces the mission's completion and offers to lead the way out of the building. A sudden system alert sound startles Ruella just as they are about to leave. A red system window warns that a suspicious sound is emanating from behind the large cabinet.
Ruella asks Hildion to wait, prompting the confused prince to ask what has caught her attention. Ruella points toward the cabinet, explaining that she can hear a faint noise coming from behind it.
She notices a gap and hears wind, deducing there is a hidden space behind the furniture.
Hildion steps forward with a determined expression, deciding to investigate this suspicious area himself.
Hildion pulls back the heavy cabinet, revealing a dark and hidden entrance to Ruella's surprise.
The movement uncovers a stone-lined secret passage leading deep into the building's foundation.
A draft of cold air whistles through the dark opening of the newly discovered tunnel.
Hildion is stunned by the presence of such a suspicious and well-hidden secret passage. Ruella explains that only her system window allowed her to find this well-guarded secret.
Hildion realizes the criminals are hiding something far more important than mere transaction ledgers. After a brief exchange, they both agree to enter the passage and investigate its contents.
The pair descends a long, spiraling stone staircase into the depths of the underground.
Ruella notes the basement's impressive depth and wonders exactly how far down the path leads. Looking downward with a grim expression, Ruella wonders what kind of horrors are hidden here.
She silently prays that their discovery is not as serious as the atmosphere suggests.
A single boot lands on the floor, signaling their arrival at the bottom of the stairs. They emerge into a dark corridor lined with sturdy iron bars and flickering torches. Surveying the grim surroundings, Ruella realizes they have discovered a hidden underground prison. Another system alert triggers, filling the dark corridor with an ominous red light. A dire warning window appears, stating that dangerous bugs are currently swarming the area.
Ruella spots a pale hand reaching through the bars despite the eerie silence of the room.
Hildion shouts a warning as a prisoner's reflection appears in the Saintess's wide eyes. Hildion pulls Ruella away just as a frantic prisoner lunges at her through the bars. Stunned by the sudden assault, Ruella asks what just happened as she recovers her balance. The corridor is suddenly filled with the screams of many prisoners reaching out for them. A close-up shows a prisoner's hand desperately gripping and rattling the iron prison bars.
Hildion orders the Saintess to stand back as he prepares to handle the breaking iron bars. Red static fills Ruella's vision as she feels relieved that the prince is by her side.
Repeated system warnings flash across the scene, announcing that the bugs are swarming in force. A prisoner screams while a notification explains that bugs are drawn to A-Hope's evil energy. A critical warning warns that Hildion will go berserk if he contacts too many bugs. Hildion glares at the threats before him, his face illuminated by a harsh red light. The system issues a quest to eliminate the bugs before Hildion loses all self-control. Ruella realizes the black energy is a bug and wonders why there are so many here. Hildion warns Ruella to get away because the bars are breaking, insisting he handle the danger alone. Ruella adamantly refuses to go, telling the shocked prince that he is the one who must leave immediately. Fearing Hildion might go berserk from the bugs, Ruella claims a divine mandate to solve this problem herself. Hildion argues that her divine hearing proves the severity of the crisis, vowing to stay by her side. Ruella panics in a stylized scene, realizing that the prince's continued presence will only escalate the danger. The tension breaks as the prison bars finally shatter, catching both of them off guard with the impact. Ruella watches in horror as the bars completely give way, releasing a swarm of desperate and crazed prisoners. Ruella orders the prince back while secretly admitting she is overwhelmed by the scale of the bug problem.
A prisoner with glowing red eyes screams, his form distorted by the corruptive energy of the bugs.
Ruella realizes with growing dread that the sheer number of bugs present exceeds anything she has ever handled.